All right. Let's see here. Let me just check on the YouTube side of
As soon
things.
as I see this starts, I'm going to have the stream up in the background, I think.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
let me see
actually,
any
yeah,
chat.
yeah. I should have mentioned, yeah, open up another YouTube channel and then you'll get the whole chat and everything off to the side.
Okay.
Like my YouTube.
That's good. There we go. And now it's muted.
Okay,
So I won't hear it.
now. Okay, there we go. Sorry, you could hear the echo because I had to mute it there. But yeah, so we're live now,
Okay.
just so you know. And yeah, just if you pull up, yeah, just open up my YouTube. Oh, I lost your sound there, Josh.
Oh, I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. Oh no, okay. No, it's the delay because I'm now looking actually YouTube side of things here. That's why. So I saw the delay there. Okay. So, anyways, folks. Well, actually, I probably should have given a little more time. I didn't give much notice, but anyways, we'll just kind of start it off here, kind of slow. I'm thanking already. There's a couple people in the stream I see. Well, at least Blizz ours. Looking forward to the discussion. Happy Sunday, all. All right. So, and then we got Lone Bear. Happy Sunday. Maybe, like I say, maybe I'll just give it. I see there's 8 people. Give it a couple minutes because, yeah, I didn't do a whole lot as far as advertising to let people know about the stream. And that's one thing that I've known for quite a while now, especially, well, within the last year and a half. Used to have pretty good luck as far as stuff getting out, but seems YouTube not playing any blame game, but it seems there does seem to be some area that affects certain people's channels where it's really hard to get your voice out there. It does seem to be somewhat suppressed. Like I say, I don't want to go into that whole thing right now in this particular video.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I say, it depends. And actually, one thing I'll just mention between you and I, it's actually very frustrating for myself is and I can't blame YouTube or any of the actual platforms for this, but I'm questioning all the time why it is. I put up about 1,040 videos now. And the ones that seem to get the most traction, the last video I put out was the one that was covering or referencing the article that out of CBC about Jagmeet Singh when he was saying, "Oh, Canada is racist." Just by having that term in there, just that one word "racist," it got, I think it's over 20,000 views already. But it was meaningless, really, in the grand scheme of things, whether someone's accusing other people of being racist. I mean, what the hell does that now, if I did a long, extensive video discussing economics, well, what kind of the stuff we're doing today? Doesn't seem to get a whole lot. I don't know. That's one of those things that I have to take issue with is what do you do when either people are compliant, complacent, unwilling to listen, or just don't have access or the ability to get this information? Like I say, I don't know how it's playing out entirely. But it is frustrating, I tell you, because a lot of people put a lot of hard work and effort into trying to educate and inform people such as myself that try to help others. And basically, it still seems, and of course, this is not new, nothing new under the sun. But even in the late stages of the Roman Empire collapsing, is Nero fiddling while Rome burns. It's like people just want to be entertained. I don't know. It's a strange thing. Information is much more important than entertainment. Well, you need the entertainment. You do need to have a little bit of escapism from time to time, but you have to live in the real world too, from time to time at least.
Absolutely.
But anyways, so I see we're getting we got 19 in the stream. So anyways, so I'll start right now. I'm going to introduce so Josh Lienhart. It's Lienhart, right? Is that how you pronounce your name?
You can say either way. In all honesty, we go by Lienhart.
Lienhart.
I honestly prefer Lienhart. So
actually, Lienhart sounds great because actually, in the English vernacular, right, it sounds really
exactly. Oh, you might have cut out there. Okay, hold up. Where's the stream?
Really happening. Oh,
here we go.
Okay, I was getting here. The internet's not the most reliable where I'm at in this particular junction. But anyways, like I say, folks, thanks for those of you who have joined the stream already. And I'm just going to introduce Josh Lienhart. And today we're going to be discussing a few topics, economics and the election results. But first and foremost, Josh mentioned that he's also come to understand and respect in the philosophy of liberty and the libertarian values and principles espoused in the philosophy of liberty. And I just want to get to know why Josh actually pivoted towards that way. I have my own, background history, what made me pivot towards libertarianism. I just want to know from Josh's own mouth, from his own words, what made him cause to pivot towards libertarian philosophy. So go ahead, Josh.
All right, for sure. So I don't know if you know where I live. I come from Southern Ontario. So I'm about an hour away from Toronto. I live just outside of Waterloo, actually, where Erica Traub was running in the PP. I think you did a video covering her.
Yes, she seems like a very wise candidate. Yes,
it was. Yes, and so it's a very, very liberal area, just in generally speaking. I'm less than a year out of university now, so I hadn't really realized that where I live is very conservative, but where I went to school was always extremely, extremely liberal. I remember trying to think of the one example. The one they were having protests. They allowed them in the school to protest abortion laws, basically.
Josh, actually, before you continue on, and I really hate to interrupt you already, but I'm a real stickler, and I'll tell you why it is, because what I've understood is the biggest problem I see with people out there whether on the political or philosophical landscape or ideological is this breakdown of actually the English language, using words and terms that just don't fit the proper description. So when you say liberal, I would actually suggest
left.
Right. Yeah. Because in reality, if you understood what a liberal represented and the ideals and the values and the principles that liberals did classically, like post-Enlightenment era, today, those people would be called conservatives,
conservatives.
It's not, but it really isn't. We shouldn't be able to just reinvent things just because people want to use that for political advantage. So
no, 100%, 100%.
So to me, I will not, just like Jordan Peterson, I will not yield the language to anyone. No, liberal has a defined meaning, and I'm not going to allow them to create this thing where now authoritarian collectivism is now somehow associated or aligned with liberalism, because actually liberalism to the core is the respect of the individual. Like
I was going to say, liberalism was very close to liberty. They were very close to libertarian.
Yeah. Like if I took someone that actually identifies as a classical liberal and we sit down and talk with each other, probably about 90% of everything that we talk about, we're going to agree with. It's going to be it's going to be some areas maybe in the social and economic realm. We might have some discrepancies and differences, but for the most part, because there was that adherence, that respect of the individual, because at the core, really, that's what we're talking about today is collectivism versus individualism. And the thing about individualism, what I always love about, and Ayn Rand said it best, is if you really care about minorities, I mean, the individual is the smallest minority on the planet. You can't pretend that you care and adhere to respect and the fundamental principles of freedom or liberty if you don't break that all the way down to the individual.
That's true.
If you stop at any group level, well, then you still allow yourself or your ideology to sacrifice tons of individuals for your greater good concept, right? Which is what the classical liberals and even some of the conservatives of the day, historically, they definitely disagreed as far as remedies, but they all agreed that the individual was what separated the West from a lot of the collectivist cultures historically, right? Or tribalism, right? So like I say, I'm sorry, and I know I kind of went off a little bit.
No, that's fine.
And it's not just for you, it's for the people that are watching. Because to me, like I say, clarity of language to me, that's actually key to everything that we do to talk about these things is clarity of language.
No, I absolutely agree that you needed to establish the boundaries for what the actual words are going to mean. By liberal, I was meaning, a little more left wing of conservatism. And because when I was there, it was a lot of the school I went to specifically was, and I hate to sound like this, but it was a lot of the immigrants from the Middle East. Right. So it was all of, they generally, you saw the voting guide that just got released.
Yes, I did.
And so you wonder why they all think sort of the same. And it's not by their own accord. It's by, maybe some of it is, but a lot of it is because they're told to think a certain way.
Exactly.
Anyways, going back to my story now. So I came from that, and then I just started working full time back in January now. So I just got into where I wanted to be working, and I started getting into more and more. I took a media class, was the last class I took in college, and our teacher was very good. He was very down the middle. He's saying it doesn't happen in the States, but you look at Canadian media, and a lot of it's subsidized by the government. I think you were saying $12 million for the CBC.
Well, CBC is over $1 billion per year for the entire, but of course, then you can break that down to the all other aspects of CBC, because you got CBC radio, you got CBC news, you got CBC television. So there's lots of areas, but in total, CBC, the state funded broadcaster, is over $1 billion per year.
Yeah. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
So then I started getting into okay, maybe I didn't really realize the media was biased. When I'm growing up, everyone tells you, in Canada, I didn't really hear any that the news stations were biased when I was younger. But now it's in the States, it was always Fox News is terrible. It's the worst. It's pretty much hearsay, and you shouldn't take it reliably. And now that I'm out of that, I got into some of the American podcasts, because there isn't a ton of Canadian like free speaking podcasts, and there was a lot of American ones, so I got into those. And as I'm watching them, it's more like, okay, I like the idea of free speech. Maybe I don't like the hate speech laws that we have here. And so from there, I started getting more and more into like free thought, free speaking. I shouldn't be taxed as much as I am. I should be able to keep my income and use it how I decide to be deemed fit. Because I'm also a business owner, and I just don't think it's. So that's basically a very, very quick, dirty rundown of how I got into being a libertarian. Just trying to get away from everything else, you know.
Well, you know, that's the thing. And when people have this discussion, I think we should actually probably would be wise when we're having these, especially economic discussions, is people forget about that when you're discussing, especially economics, it seems to be just ones and zero and, you know, algebraic equations or mathematics. But in reality, at the core, you're talking about economics is based on valuations, right?
Yes.
So there's a moral undertone to that. And I mean, if you understand how, like, you know, if you take slavery in conjunction to, you know, function in a free interact and engage with, you know, an employer-employee relationship, is at the end of the day, really what we're talking about is we want morality to be at the core of all of our, whether it's social or economic engagements, because that's the only thing that really separates humans from the rest of the animal kingdom.
Absolutely.
Is that we place morality at the basis, or ethics at the basis for our interactions or engagement. And that's the problem why, like I say, where the language has been manipulated to the point where people, like, they talk about socialism. Now, like I say, if you've never sat down and actually, you know, looked up what socialism means and how you could get from point A to B to make that, to implement that. I was actually having a talk with my son and my uncle and my wife and my mother. Like, we were having a good chat about this the other night. And it basically comes down to is, do you respect, you know, people having the ability to, barter or negotiate for what their productive value or anything they produce and what it's worth? Because socialism is the pretense of equality. Now, that sounds good, you know, on the surface, right? If you don't never scratch below the surface, equality sounds great. But really, if you think about it, whether you're talking about economic or even physical prowess, looks, there is no way, there's no human possible way to do that in a moral or ethical manner, because there's just some people that are more competent, you know, wiser, stronger, taller, you know, whatever that might be, because we aren't all equal, really. So really, at the end of the day, socialism seeks to impose equality, which means you have to suppress people that would be naturally in a hierarchy, because hierarchies exist no matter what. Like I say, in your social realm, your economic realm, no matter what area or function that you live as a human being, there's going to be hierarchies. But what you really want at the end of the day is the people that do strive to attain or achieve high levels of success in that hierarchy, is you at least want to make sure that they're doing it in at least the closest thing to an ethical or moral manner, which government is, we all know, government is a monopoly of force or violence. That's what government is.
Yes.
Right? So if you're using a monopoly of force or violence as your means to an end to achieve that goal, how can you claim any kind of moral superiority? But because people just don't ever scratch below the surface of what these authoritarian collectivist ideologies mean, it sounds good on the surface. But that's a part, and that's where the young people are being failed by a lot of educators, you know, thought leaders, people in our cultural, like whether it's movies, music. Like I said, when I realized, even as a young man, and then I'll let you respond real quick, I just want to roll with my thought here, is when I was a young man, I realized that, okay, I was raised in a religious family, but I realized that the world was turning very much, pivoting away from religion and more towards secularism, which kind of makes sense, because some of the old religions did some pretty crazy shit. But one thing I understood as an adult is post-Reformation and post the Enlightenment era, they tried to make religion as close to the most common sense and reasonably logic basis for our interactions, to have a moral basis, right? It was never perfect, but if you're going to have an abstract authority, then that abstract authority should be outside the realm where, just like math can't harm us, but we all have to adhere, we have to yield, we have to conform to the fact that 2 + 2 is 4, because we know it. Well, try sending a spaceship up into space without using those proper calculations, right? It's not going to work. So at the core, we need some some foundation in terms of morals. And because humans have to invent it, it is something we pulled out of nothing because it doesn't genuinely exist. But once you've taken that out of that mystical single entity that makes sure it's universalized for all human beings, and you place it in the hands of people that claim to be your authority in government, well, they're all fallible. They're not that external entity that is unfallible. Now it's subjective, and now it's just whoever has the best sales pitch, right, or talking point.
That's exactly it.
Or takes access of that big giant metaphorical gun in the room, which once again, I don't know how any of these people can claim, and a lot of them that do it, that's why I try to have these discussions with them one-on-one, is once you've done that with someone and you do it in a proper manner, a lot of them will be like, oh crap, no, you're right. But no one, it scares me that so many people have gone through the course of their entire life, which is why I do what I do. They've gone through the course of their entire life and no one has told them this stuff, right? That's disturbing to me. But anyway, sorry, Josh, go ahead, man. And take as long as you want, because I know I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there.
No, I don't mind going back and forth. It helps to push the conversation along. I lose my train of thought sometimes when I'm talking, and I get very riled up when I talk about some things.
I hear you, buddy.
So just to respond to the concept of, I want to go. He started with socialism, so I'll start there. I actually have a friend who he identifies as an anarchist, and I didn't know that. So he's very anti-government. Right. So I was like, I kind of think about that the same way, a little bit less government intervention, a little bit more the laissez-faire approach to the economic system.
Yep.
And then he tells me, I actually don't want to get rid of the government entirely. I think we should actually also have like universal basic income, and we should have like, more like a commune sort of setup. Then you're not an anarchist. It doesn't make sense. Like, how can you be anti-government but also want these rules imposed by a higher power? They're going to cause your income to help to subsidize other. It just made no sense when he was telling me that. And then I hadn't really, like, growing up, obviously, don't really get taught about socialism. Like, our history classes stopped at World War One, so they didn't touch on anything that happened in Russia between World War One and World War Two. No, it stopped there. And then I took an ancient history course, which also never touched on. It pretty much avoided slavery, and a lot of the course was actually based on how negative the Catholic religion was, which, I grew up Catholic, so it's kind of like, I don't really like this class. This kind of sucks, but I'm interested in history, so I took it.
Yeah.
And now, it's just, I don't understand how they can do that. So then after school, I started getting into more political. I used to be completely anti-politics. They're all corrupt. That was my train of thought growing up, and not that I've changed completely, but
no. Your assumptions were fairly correct, I would say.
But now that I'm growing up, I actually look at the political system, and even in high school, it's kind of like, I don't mind the idea of communism, because then, even if I was working a part-time job making minimum wage there, then for students it was like $9 an hour, so I was making $9. I was like, I don't mind the idea of shared income where I can have just a little bit more than I have now. But now that I stand back and I look at it, I'm making an actual adult salary. It's kind of like, okay, maybe I don't want this as much. Maybe I like to be able to spend money the way I see fit. And it's not that it's immoral to do that either. Like, that's what my buddy told me when I told him that I want, less government intervention. I'd like to keep more money from taxes. I think CPP is a complete joke. And he started yelling at me we were in a restaurant. He starts yelling at me, and there was a group of 5 of us, and he's just screaming at me. I was like, what's wrong with you, dude? Like, you can't. He's like, do you have no morals? And I got thinking, I was like, economics, while it is based on morals, it's also based on the idea that humans are rational, which is completely, I say false completely. But even though I have the money, it doesn't mean you're going to be immoral. You can still, if I own a business, I pay everyone at least minimum wage or above. I base it on their ability to work. And that was the thing with, I don't know what the minimum wage is out in New Brunswick. But I know last year in Ontario, under the Kathleen Wynne Ontario government, we jumped our minimum wage from, I think it was $20 to $14, which is a pretty significant jump. And all over the news feeds, people were saying, this is a good thing. Like, everyone needs to be able to make a living wage. And then I would go on, I'd say, this isn't going to be a living wage. It's just going to increase the cost of living. And they're like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Businesses should have to pay people this amount of money so that they can survive. I was like, as soon as you increase the operating cost of the business, they're going to increase their profits to subsidize that cost. And people were just denying that. Yeah. And then finally it happened. And then I think a week or two after, it might have been longer than that, I'm not actually sure on the dates anymore. but Tim Hortons started cutting benefits and cutting full-time hours.
Right.
And people were, oh my God, how can they do this? I was like, you commented on my post when I said this wasn't going to happen. How do you look now? How does that feel for you? And then people get so upset when I say, like, I personally don't believe there should be a minimum wage. I know that a lot of companies will take the advantage and not pay people fairly. I realize that there are going to be some outliers like that. Not all companies are going to be fair. The company I was at before, I was a part-timer. There was roughly 6 part-timers. I was always paid at least $4 higher than the next highest one because of my work ethic. I was raised to work. I was raised on farms. So, I wasn't afraid to get my hands dirty and, admittedly hurt myself to get a job done maybe a little bit faster. That's not necessarily the greatest thing to do, but
yeah.
I don't know. It was things like that just kind of pushed me more and more towards. Originally, I thought it was more right wing, like conservatism, and now I look at what conservatism means, and it's pro big government. It's still pro control, and that's still not what I'm trying to go towards.
Right. Well, that's the thing with libertarians, and we do always and seemingly get attacked from either side, because that's the thing. If you're discussing social, usually it breaks down to social or economic issues, because conservatives have seemingly been told that economic drivers and being more socially conservative is a big thing, whereas liberals have been told historically that social freedoms, but economic, maybe not so much. But literally what it comes down to the end of the day is just being reasoned and principled, no matter if you're talking about economics or social. But that's the thing. They realize that humans can function in that binary mindset, right? Or of because they understand that social and economics, they do have different variances and play a different effect in our life. So they realize that that's a great way to play that divide and conquer, which is why no matter where you go around the world, I mean, they could have a 2-party system or a 10-party system, but every one of those parties are going to fall on one side of that political aisle, right or left, right? So that's that divide. And, divide and conquer works. I mean, this is a tried and true tactic throughout all of history, and it keeps people invigorated and want to keep the fight because you want your team to win. I mean, I hate to say this because I know my fellow Torontonian people hate when I bring this up, but that's like supporting the Toronto Leafs after longer than I've been alive. Why? Because they feel it's part of my tribe. It's part of my team. It's the team I support. But at some point in time, don't you want to know, me personally, whether it's a tribe or a team or my children, I want them to gain confidence. And that's never going to happen if I just constantly support them and constantly tell them everything, right? No, but and that's the thing about the beauty of the free market is, yes, we can, and like you were saying, you succeed or fail based on your competence and what you provide, right? And that's the beautiful aspect of the free market. Like you were saying, minimum wage sounds great, but I mean, my wife has worked in minimum wage jobs many times in her life, and what I've seen and what most people have probably worked in those environments has seen, and if you understand the Pareto distribution principle, is it sounds good to pay everybody. If you got 20 people on the floor in a typical retail outlet, they're all getting paid the same wages. But you'll see, just walk around there, spend an hour in the store, and you'll see there's probably about 2 or 3 of them that are doing like half of the work. The rest of them are just putting in their day, making it look like they're busy, but they're not doing a goddamn thing. So they're not actually bringing anything economically. They're not making the company more viable, more prosperous. If they were, then they might be able to get compensated or rewarded because there's excess profits where they can be spread around. But no, if you pay 20 people the same rate, well, the people that are opportunists and are going to take advantage of the fact, just like the old expression back in old Russia under the communist regimes, is they pretend to pay us, we pretend to work. Well, that's kind of like I say, that incentive structure will ultimately break down, whether you're talking about a small family setting or a societal structure. Eventually you break down the entire structure of incentive where everyone's like, well, I'm not, why bother? Why? And even myself, I'm very goal oriented. I'm very driven, and I find myself, I even have to try this, but I'm still compelled to suppress myself because I realize no matter what I do today, whatever I provide, I'm not going to be properly economically rewarded for it. So where's the incentive for me to step up the game? There is none. And that, to me, at the end of the day, like I say, whether you're in competitive sports, talking about politics or economics, is we need proper incentive structures. Doesn't mean that everything is always going to work out perfect. That's never going to happen. We're never going to live in that utopian goddamn world, all right? That's never going to exist. But at the very least, if we can decentralize power and how things are incentive structures, then we can see competing ventures. I've said so many times, you brought up about communists. I talk to people all the time, and I invite them onto my stream. They don't want to do it, but I invite them all the time, like communists or socialists, say, listen, because I would love to bring this up so people could watch. You go ahead, you set up your commune. If I was king for a day, I'd say, okay, you communists do your thing, socialists do your thing. But here's the key.
Yeah.
The only people that get to interact and engage with you are ones that do so voluntarily. Well, you find out fairly quickly that these communes they dwindle down to basically nothing, and they would cease to exist, because eventually people realize that, well, no. They're just being opportunists and taking advantage of the ones that are doing all the work. And that you would see the incentive structure for what it is. But because we function currently, and these people are very smart, the people that are controlled, the central planners, realize the third way, mixed economy, as they call it, where you have the underlying premise of capitalism, but the overarching layer of bureaucracy and wealth redistribution, they realize that as long as they're producing wealth, well, the communists, the socialists, the fascists, they can take advantage of that wealth and redistribute it as how they see fit. So there's a lot of people that take advantage, even corporations today. It's hard work to compete with someone else in the free market, but the dairy cartel, not shutting down the oil industry, limited production. Well, it's much easier to just use, force, like suppress competition, deny competition. It's much easier for certain people. But what that does, and there is an immediate benefit for a particular company, corporation, but what you see is over time, that destruction of proper incentive, it permeates throughout the entire culture, and eventually even the most dominant, like say the Roman Empire, the British, eventually you destroy incentive to the point where even, like I say, even empires that dominated the entire globe almost at one point in time will self-destruct, because humans can't function that way. Well, even in nature could never function that way, which is why it can't happen, which is why the 20th century, the landscape of Europe is dotted with hundreds of millions of people, or Asia for that matter, of people that died under these collectivist regimes that thought that they were doing the right thing to try to bring equality to the people. But at the end of the day, when you really, like I say, I'll take inequality any day, knowing the fact that at least we have mobility. That's the beautiful thing about the free market, is there's always going to be inequality, but with free market, it allows mobility. There's no one to suppress or deny us our ability to move up or down on that ladder, right? A one-size-fits-all approach, which is what government is it denies our ability to ever escape or get out from underneath that kind of top-down authoritarianism, which, like I say, destroys your social and economic culture in your country to the point where, well, you end up like Venezuela is today, and it's a shame.
Yeah, because just going right off what you said at the end there, moving up and being able to move up and down the scale, it's like Canada's economy, it definitely does have more social safety nets, and it is a little bit more government run than it is. Like if you look in the States, I saw an argument done by Ben Shapiro, and I thought it was a brilliant way to discuss economics. And it's that in an American, and I believe to an extent Canadian economy, if you're poor your entire life, you can't blame the economy for that. There is so much room to move up and down. It's the same where they use the argument of the 1% versus the 99%.
Right.
That 1% changes constantly. It doesn't stay the same your entire life. And you have that opportunity to move in and out of that. If you are, I still believe if you are in the lower income sector your entire life, it is not a problem with the government. It is that either you're bad with money, you're bad with investing, you don't want to work, or you're living off, in Canada especially, you were living off of the welfare state or social security safety nets. And that's where I think it's detrimental. And that's why you see such a huge wage gap in Canada. That's why people in Canada, there is a huge, between the highest and the lowest of the income earners. And it's not because of minimum wage. It's not because of people don't, it's because you start paying people welfare. And I knew people in my hometown like this. As soon as you start paying, in that one case, I'll use that anecdotal case, but one person had a disability, so fine. If you have an actual crippling disability, I don't mind the idea of receiving something, though I don't think it should be subsidized by the government necessarily.
Right.
Maybe whoever you were working for before should have some sort of, if you can't work, I think it's different than and then the rest of the family, they didn't work, because if they had a job, it would lower the amount of income he received from his disability. So it's like, well, come on now. That's just laziness as opposed to an actual, yeah, that's where I think welfare is also very detrimental to income.
Yeah, well, when you're talking about that and the fact, well, the problem with welfare is, like you're saying, I think most of us actually, because in our own personal lives, we do this on a regular basis. You know, on my own children, like as adults, even if they were in a situation where they weren't, you know, economically viable for a short time, I'd be more than, but I would never. And not because even if I was wealthy, I would never want to just keep paying, because I would recognize, not because I would be worried about depleting my own resources, but I'd be so worried about what the hell I would be doing to my own children if I just constantly incentivize them to be ambitious in any way. And I've seen that happen. The reason why I understand this is because of real world experience where I've seen people have done that. And it's like, oh, to me, that would be probably the worst thing I could do, which is difficult. And this is the problem where you have to have that balance, which is the left or right, whether you're talking about metaphorically or psychologically, the left or right. So the compassion, the heart, and the brain, right? But that's where you need to balance that out. And it's a difficult task. It's something that's impervious to like an objective standard, because it's so dependent on every example. You can't just write out some, you know, baseline rule and says that this is how it should. There is no one size fits all. You know, there's going to be times that you're going to need, but like I say, at least if it's done voluntarily by family. That was the importance of maintaining in Christianity in conjunction with capitalism. Christianity gave us the overarching moral standards and the adherence to family values. So that actually, just by that alone, by making sure that family, we take care of each other, well, that automatically had the subsequent consequence of keeping government very small, because that means we rely on each other, right? And that way you don't need a third party entity to use force, but you recognize that if you're on the hook as a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or uncle, you're going to, because you care about that person personally, you're going to want to incentivize them properly, even if you do help them, just like a charity. A charity has a proper incentive structure even as well to try to help people, right? If it's not profit driven. If it's just a charity, they're going to want to do what's best to help people, not just in the short term, but what's going to be best for them and beneficial to them, not just society, but the person, the individual themselves in the long term. So, but once you've just put that in the hands of people that can just rob from Peter to give to Paul, once again, now there isn't any personal engagement. Now there's just a blank face, a blank check, and nobody thinks about these issues critically once again, which is why things are destroying in the West. And I mean, to me, what bothers me most about this is so many people work so hard for hundreds of years to get us up to speed to understand these things. And it's like the West have taken all that knowledge that took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get to this point. It's like we're all just, not you or I, we're obviously discussing these things, but a lot of people are taking them at advantage and just and sacrificing them at the altar of just, I don't know, just a feel-good feeling that at the end of the day, just gut check yourself, right? If you got that feel-good feeling, you know, that emotional thing, check that shit with your brain once in a while, right? Run that through the analytics, right? Put some algebra, put some mathematics, do something in there, and you'll come to the realization that actually you're not even benefiting the people that you think you are. You're not actually doing anything really good for them. Like the parent that raised the spoiled kid. You haven't done a goddamn thing for that kid, because all they're going to go out and step out in the real world, and they're going to see a world that is nothing even closely resembling how they were raised in, and they're going to go through some hell. And you've done that to them. You have contributed to that. That, to me, I wouldn't want to do that on a small scale for my family, and I sure shit don't want to happen on a grand scale in a society.
That's what I was going to go after. That's where I was trying to go before I started getting a little flustered. But it was that concept of when you start paying the family's welfare because one of the parents can't work. What does that? I'm not even saying. I think you went with. You mentioned if you were giving to the family, are you taking away from your own children? I think that's what you were trying to get at.
What was that? Sorry.
If you were giving as in the Christian, as like the Christian values taught you, if someone's going through a hard time, you give them a little bit of money. I'm not sure were you going with that? What would it do to your own children? What would it do to their children?
Well, what I would say, like if in my own situation when I was raising my kids, what I was using an example is if I've helped them out, obviously when they were in need, even as adults, sometimes that just happens. But if all I ever did was never teach them, like if they put themselves in a situation that was of their own fruition of any point, if I just help paint over that or mask over that, they're just going to keep making that same mistake over again. So to me, at the end of the day, I'd be willing to help them, but at the same time, I want them to learn. Like just like I've had to learn from my past mistakes, my bad habits, or my behaviors. That's the only thing that's ever advanced me to do better, right? And so I'm all for helping people, just like you. And I would be totally willing. That's one thing I've said so many times in the past. give us the opportunity where we can just use, like you were saying, your paycheck. And if you are confident and you're getting a good paycheck, I'm sure you would be much wiser and beneficial to a lot of people if you yourself could pick out who you could help. Right.
Yes.
And it wouldn't mean that you would have to give them money. It wouldn't mean that you'd have to walk out, let's say downtown Toronto and just start handing out $100 bills. No, that kind of help might very well come in the form of giving someone a job, giving them the opportunity to advance themselves in some way so that they can be more productive in their own life and maybe get them the ability to start their own family. Maybe they become entrepreneurs themselves. There's a million things that you can do to help people, but it shouldn't come at the cost or the consequence of plundering from other people. Right, because then, like I said, that incentive structure, whether it's the beneficiary or supposed beneficiary or the person that's on the other side of the equation, is you failed them both. That's basically what I was kind of coming to.
No, that's basically what I was trying to figure out, is even when you start giving the money and when you start having the government giving money and like in the welfare state sort of thing,
right?
One of like my biggest concern comes from, what are these children our children are learning from, if we have a little extra money, we can help people who aren't quite as fortunate. But then you have to look at it from the other side too. And it's when you're receiving the money, and let's say it is the welfare state, and you're seeing your parents, they're making money and they're not working. What is that teaching the kids? That's just teaching another generation like that. And I think that's where it ties into. I was going to go back earlier. I wrote it down here. Equality versus equity. You were discussing in very, very good detail equality, and that's the idea they're going to have, is that it needs to be pro-equality. Everyone needs to, you need to be able, that's where the idea of universal basic income comes from. And that's just another ball to unwrap all of its own.
Yeah.
But
that's just the new way of saying socialism. That's all it is. They reinvent the words all the time.
It sounds so much nicer now, though. There's no more ism on the end.
It does. It really does, doesn't it?
So I can get into that in a bit, but
before you continue on, since you brought that up, just give me 1 sec there, Josh. just because I wasn't expecting you to necessarily bring that up, but I was going to save this to make my own video about it, and I will still. But this is my buddy Anthony Samroff. He's a part of the Scottish Libertarian Party over in the UK.
Wow.
And he wrote this book. Actually, I'll even admit I have yet to read it. I've been kind of busy. I do want to sit down and I will read it. But it's Universal Basic Income for and Against. And I'm not getting paid for this, but I just want to mention that actually he's a really wise guy and he's a libertarian himself. And he did this book basically to help people that are actually questioning this stuff, because especially a lot of the younger people, they hear that and it sounds good in theory, but you just really, if you take the time and read even a book like this or some other publication or other people that have talked about this stuff, and I mean in a way that gives you clear and concise aspects of the pros and cons, because like he says, he's giving you both sides of the equation, folks, and allowing you to kind of make your own decision based on that. So anyways, sorry about that. I just want to mention.
No, that's fine. Cool. Because that's where I was gonna talk about that. I'm not really sure what I was gonna say anymore because my brain just kind of goes on.
I hear you, buddy. There's so much to keep on top. I know. I hear it. Sometimes I wonder. I think I need more memory capacity back there.
And just in the back, just plug it in right here. It will be good.
Yeah. But universal basic income is definitely one of those things where it sounds good in theory, but at the end of the day, that is actually the complete breakdown of incentive structures. And what you're saying as far as equality and equity, the equality that I would say that's proper is at least equality in terms of treatment, right? Treatment,
yes.
If we're going to live in anything remotely resembling any kind of structure, like I say, even in competitive sport, any venue, any structure is, yes, people should be at least given the opportunity to enter into that thing based on the fact that they are equal as far as given the opportunity. Now, how that plays out, that's the equity side of things. I don't care much for the equity side of things, because that equity side of things means you have to, someone like, your typical sprinter, let's say, that's the fastest person around the track. Well, the only way you get to an equity position is you have to handicap or trip the guy or girl up, right? It's like, last thing I want to do to create some semblance of equity is to stumble or make someone have to stumble, trip, or fall to make us all finish at the finish line. That to me, because if you're the guy or girl that's the slowest person, equity might sound good to you, but you got to think on the other side of that equation. What about that person that's, whether they become they're just naturally fast, or they just worked a lot harder? Like,
Yeah.
what have you done to the person that put in the extra effort, or were fortunately through biology or whatever happened to be the case, just happen to be more competent or faster in terms of the running? Well, I wouldn't want to handicap anyone. I would acknowledge the fact that this person was fortunate enough, or whether they worked hard enough to be given an advantage in life, and good for them. I don't. That's that thing where, and in Canada, it's pretty prevalent, and you'll probably realize this even more so as you get older. Is
Yeah.
I've actually, and it's a hard thing because the American culture is much better in terms of acknowledging and respecting competition. But
Yes.
in Canada, I've always found in my life is the minute I'm getting to the point where I'm being remotely successful is the minute I'm starting to look over my shoulder, because there's usually someone, and like I said, I hate to say this because it doesn't mean I'm talking about all Canadians, but it does seem to be fairly dominant, especially cultures that pivot closer and closer towards equity or socialism in any way, is they want to bring people, when they see someone succeed, I don't know. It is that thing where they want to bring you down to their level, kind of thing, and that's a psychological thing to me. Like, and because I'm fortunate enough, like most Canadians, we were given American culture as well, right?
Yes.
Historically, through our television and radio and movies, and I recognize that difference. Like, I love, and I'm a Canadian. I'm a Canadian. I am, and I'm that's who. But I've always loved and had great admiration for that American culture, where it's you seek out to give people recognition and acknowledgement for what they strive to attain in terms of success, and that to me it's a great. Well, look at how beneficial it has been. America in 200 years went from being just a ragtag 12 colonies, but in 200 years became the most dominant, and I mean not just by a small degree. I mean
significantly the most powerful entity the world's ever seen.
Right. I mean that happened under that incentive structure, and even today, think about it. They're still the most dominant, even though there's lots of areas and countries around the world that are starting to catch up. But they're still resting and residing on the laurels of that past philosophical underpinnings, which tells you that was very strong. Which is why we need to adhere to that more. Even in Canada, we need to adhere more to being. It's not competition as far as cutthroat necessarily per se, but to raise and elevate each other. Because at the end of the day, like everyone that can raise and elevate other people, well, by some way we benefit. Like, think of all the amazing, not just entrepreneurs, but all the things that have been created by these people that said, I don't want to be equal. I want to strive to attain something more successful and beneficial. I mean, look at that. I mean, all the poor people of the world, that's the thing. People, especially people on the left, they talk about, they care about poor people. Well, thank God for those entrepreneurs and those amazing business-minded people that come up with all these amazing technologies and innovations that have helped billions of people all around the world. Like, why would you want to destroy or degrade that in any way? I just don't understand that. Unless you're someone that's envious and you didn't do it yourself, or you're living in your own life of misery and you want to bring other people down to your level. That's about the only kind of mindset I think that hates people that are beneficial for most.
Well, that's where a lot of it comes from. You just mentioned people being envious, and that's where a lot of the idea of socialism I think comes from. And it's people want the idea of equality if they can't quite achieve the standards that they want to live at themselves. Like a lot of people I see talking about, like as you mentioned, universal basic income, equality, socialism, anything like that. Anyone who talks about that are usually people. I don't want to say they're lazy, but I want to say it's either that they're students, so they don't have an income and they want to live maybe a little bit more beyond their means,
right,
or they're unemployed at the time, or I don't even want to say unemployed, because there are some people who still recognize the virtues of the capitalist system, but it's a lot of the people who rely more on other people to pay the bills and everything else. They're the ones that want help moving up, but they don't want to do the work themselves to move up the ladder. They just expect to use their arguments and their words, and they expect to say, don't you have any morals? You should be feeling bad for the people who can't afford to buy the premium whatever. Don't you feel bad for us? I think that's where a lot of the morals come into play again. And it just seems to be a circular cycle with some people where they try and twist the words, and I don't know how people don't see the downsides to those economic systems.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
Well, the other thing too that I actually want to bring up there, if you don't mind me just interjecting, is the whole premise and pretense of debts and deficits today. I see a lot of the young people, and especially subsequent to the vote, and I'm starting to go weed through all the breakdown of the election results too. And I'm seeing like it's a shame, but we've understood this. I mean, even myself, I'll admit, I would have been someone that would probably have been more left leaning in my younger years because, once again, just like you were saying earlier, you haven't put yourself in the position where you're on the other side of that equation. But a lot of the young people today have been sold a bill of goods that just is completely not even acknowledging of reality. So they're told socialism and all this stuff, but is good and pumping using government like Keynesian economics as a means to an end, right? So when the free market breaks down anyway, in reality it doesn't unless government intervenes to do so. But because the free market doesn't break down, just look at the marijuana industry if you want to know any reality of that. But anyways, but even under Keynesian economics, where you just use stimulus, I mean, like I say, when you were subsequent to a war and people were in some really, really devastating situations, I can understand why people said, okay, let's just go with this. They probably realized that this ain't going to be a long-term thing, but let's just try it. Just like in Canada in 1917. Let's do the foreign or the war tax, right? It's going to be temporary.
Yes,
right. But in reality, it's not. You've actually you've destroyed incentives to the point where nobody is actually thinking about what needs to properly be done. But the Keynesians thought, well, if we just stimulate now, we can get over this immediate hurdle where society doesn't break down. And yes, I guess you put a Band-Aid on that solution. But now people today, and the young people that disturbs me is the young people today are thinking, well, let me, and especially the millennials, like I say, if you're a boomer, I can totally understand where you're Keynesian because but John Maynard Keynes even admitted himself when he was questioned by this. I think it was Hayek when he questioned it, but it's like at the end of the day, he said, we're all dead, which is true. Like, and if you're someone that's the latter stage of your life, that's fine. But the young people today that are voting for socialism or wealth income redistribution or debts and deficits, do you not realize that it's that later stage in your life that you're the one that's going to be on the hook, or your kids that never had nothing to say with it? Like these millennials today that at some point in time, maybe they postponed or prolonged having children. But let's say you do in 10, 15 years or 5 years, whatever, however long it takes. All those debts and deficits, well, those are promises to someone, bond holders, right? Investors they
have to be paid.
Central bankers. Somebody's going to be forced to pay this stuff at some point in time. Otherwise, the entire economy break down. And I'll tell you, that's a devastating situation. Once again, talk to Venezuela. But at that situation, if you're a young person, don't you realize that you're actually voting for your own economically enslavement? It's just that you realize that when you're young, well, yeah, but I'm not out there working, so actually, no, it's going to benefit me. But you were at some point in time, unless you plan on spending the entirety of your life, right, living off the proceeds of theft or government largesse, you're the one that's going to be on the hook. And I'm telling you, like, it's best to better to pay the piper now than later, because you don't know what your economic situation or circumstance might be in the future. So deal with but that's the thing. It's so much easier, right? How much, if you're given the opportunity, especially a young person, put in all this hard work and effort, think about things critically, or someone comes along and says, here you go. Just all you got to do, just kiss the ring and I'll take care of it. Well, it's much easier, but at some point in time, like I say, and that's one thing I think that the millennial generation and Gen Z in particular are all going to come around probably when they reach about my age, in your mid point of your age, like 40s and 50s and stuff. They're going to realize, but like, it's going to be too late then, folks. Like that, trust me, you're not going to want to wait to that point, because then you're so far removed from any potential remedy to the solution that all they'll have left is continuing on that. Well, I guess we're not going to get out of this situation. So, well, listen, I know it's not the right thing to do, but to keep things going, hum along, let's just enslave more generations, right? Yeah. But eventually, at some point in time, you run out of other people's. Well, that's the thing with fiat currencies. Actually, historically, it was real quick. It was fairly quick to understand that you would run out of other people's money. But the unfortunate thing with fiat currencies and governments and central banks being able to print this stuff and all in conjunction with each other, right? All coordinated, is like, fuck. I actually believe that they can sustain this stuff for a substantial portion of time. But once again, all you're doing is kicking that proverbial can down the road. And, well, I don't know. I feel sorry for the people that at some point in time where they hit that wall and there's nowhere to kick that can. Wow. What are those people going to have to deal with?
It's like, yeah, that's the thing that my generation is starting to see now is, uh, like with the legalization of marijuana, just looking at that alone, like I
Yep.
get that was, you know, as someone who's anti-government, I don't think any of the drugs should be illegal because the government can't keep them off the street anyway. So what's the point?
Exactly.
You're wasting money trying to incarcerate people and chase them down.
Yeah.
But what did I'm not sure if it was. I'm assuming it was Ontario because there's no way it was national. But they somehow managed to lose $11 million in the first year of sale, when they have the monopoly. Like, how is that even possible?
Yeah.
Like, that just shows you that they can't manage costs. So how can I expect them to manage the rest of the economy? Like the 2019 budget. I'm an accountant, so I have to at least understand like a portion of it. Like the budget
Right.
literally says they're planning to go another $19.8 billion into the deficit.
Mm.
Like, how is this a plan that anyone signed off on? How is this something that's acceptable?
Well, that's the thing. It's not really, and that's the problem with politics and the media, both
Mhm.
working together in conjunction. Is politicians will always take advantage of manipulating people because they're professional liars for the most part.
Mhm.
But historically, the whole point of having any media was to hold power to account. But today, because most of the media recognize that they can inherently benefit from that big government, and they have now, especially in particular, CBC already to the tune of $2 billion. But now you have $600 million, $595 going to all the rest of them. So now their incentive is to keep the status quo going. Like everyone, like basically, and like I say, back to Keynesian, everyone's a Keynesians now. Just the politics or the politicians, they come up with the policy, and then the media does the political fodder and the cover, right? The rhetoric, the propaganda to make it stick to people. And let me tell you, these people, one thing I will say about people on that left or that authoritarian side of the structure that come from academia is they're very well versed in using our language in a manipulative manner. And they're professionals. These people, and that's one thing. If you're someone that's trying to be honest or objective, I'm sorry, but you're going to pale in comparison to be able to put forth any kind of rhetoric or rhetorical stance that's going to counter the people that can, like I say, promise the world. How do you do that? How do you do that on a scale such as a country? Like, it's hard enough to do it even with your own. Could you imagine if you had, an uncle that you were raising your kids trying to tell them you should never steal, right? Stealing's bad. But you just had this brother that was their uncle and he was rich and he just kept fucking handing money to him. Oh, don't worry about where it came from. I mean, it's really hard enough even as a parent to say, oh, you shouldn't be taking that money because you don't know where that came from. I say, yeah, but look at how much I benefited from. Once again, self-interest. That's one thing about libertarians. People always talk about libertarians as if, oh, they're utopians. No, actually, libertarians understand human psychology and self-interest intrinsically. That's why we have to decentralize and destroy any pretense of having centralized powers, because humans, yes, if you incentivize, because we all have self-interest, right?
Yes.
Even myself, I have to fight every day. And the only thing that helps me is I'm kind of fortunate that I come from a family that were very moral and had some religious underpinnings and undertones that did, and it carries through to me to this day. And fortunately, I've surrounded myself with other like-minded people. But if I didn't have that, I realized how easy it would be to be susceptible to why do I want to keep, because I've noticed myself, for me to do the right thing, especially on this current world we live in, I have to constantly be imposing self-harm on myself. It would be so much easier, like I say, to just kiss the ring. But it's hard, even with my moral underpinnings. I'm finding it even harder for me today to want to continue to do things that are self-destructive, even though I know they're going to be beneficial in the long run. But look at how much harm I'm causing myself. Like I say, I could have said long ago, okay, let me just turn to the dark side and I'd be much more rewarded. But then I realized that, but what happens if we all pivot that way, right? I know a lot of people will pivot, but if we all pivot that way, well, then we're back to the dark ages again. Then we've got hundreds and hundreds of years. And who knows, maybe if a couple generations goes by, history can be read to the point where it might take a millennial to get back to this point. So to me, I feel this desire, and I think it is a long-term process. I don't even think that I'm just one person that's contributing in the best way I can. But I think all I can do at the end of the day, and we live in the age of information, is do my best to put out the information that I think is pertinent for everybody. I like say, don't care who you are as far as your economics or your politics, is just put out proper premises that are built and entrenched on universal ethics and morality, and hope that enough people with enough influence, with enough sway, with enough ambition, that we can still be that driving force for the good going forward, and keep the West in that proper mindset, which is what has created so much viability and prosperous aspects for, like I say, not just millions but billions of people around the world. But once again, I'm also a pragmatic. Doesn't mean that we're going to win. It could fail in a tremendous way, but I'm not, at least when I lay my head down at night, I want to know that I've tried. I've at least tried. If I failed, whatever, at least I've done my best. Well, I won't put it this way. If I do fail, I'll know it's not because I haven't put in the effort. I'll realize that that blame is going to be on everyone else, not because I didn't do my job.
Yeah, you've done everything you can to, I mean, luckily we're in a very fortunate era where we have access to,
yes,
you stream on YouTube. There's how many different platforms? There's Twitch, there's YouTube, there's, I mean, I'm sure those smaller ones, I've only ever used these two,
right.
But there's dozens. There's how many different, there's even more sites like YouTube, like there's
BitChute.
I think a lot of them, they start getting a little shaky as you start getting smaller and smaller. I'm not very familiar with them. YouTube has always been, I mean, I remember when YouTube was starting out, it was literally just like cat videos, and for some reason, the videos were weird. But now you're actually starting to get like educational content out there, and people are actually trying to inform people. Like the channel I watch, I don't know how many channels, other like information channels that you follow. I don't follow any like the news channels. Like that can just stay away. It somehow still pops up in my news feed though, so that's always interesting. But I follow obviously like Ben Shapiro. A lot of it's a lot of American stuff, but it's like even they say they're libertarian and they're not necessarily. I would argue like they're still, they say the government's stupid, but then they say Trump does something that suits their their self-interest, as you were saying, and they're still good. But that's beside the point. But
no, I know that's the thing. Well, actually, that's one thing I will say. The only positive I can say in terms of the way the political or the media establishment has been covering things is, at the very least, and why I was a big proponent and supporter of Maxime and the PPC is because I recognize that the term libertarian, because Maxime, now he still would identify as a conservative, but because that term libertarian came up, and I heard even people that referenced some of his videos back in the day in 2009, 2010, because of Ron Paul, they would say, oh, he's the Canadian Ron Paul. To me, it's that term libertarian that was so important, because like I say, Canadians, at least it's something to do. Like Canadians have heard about liberalism, conservatism, right? And all that. But Canadians are not susceptible or privy mostly to libertarian aspects and the philosophy.
Absolutely not.
But to me, what I realize is this was a great way to put libertarianism on. And I was so happy all the time when I'd see even CBC articles. Like I'd see that term, is like, well, at the very least, even people that don't even understand what any of this means, they're going to, at least because they live in the age of Google, right? Yes. Hopefully at least some of them, a small proportion or even a substantial portion of them, will at least, well, what the hell is this libertarian? What does this even mean? Right? And all it takes is for you to learn. It's like, well, what the hell could you possibly disagree with? Like, do you believe in self-ownership? Do you believe in freedom, right? Do you believe in property rights? Do you believe in, respecting the individual? Like all those things. Now, some people will still try to manipulate that to their own economic or political advantage. But at the very least, that was the thing that told me that at least we can get Canadians up to speed, to at least be inquisitive in some way, to try to understand what is liberty? What is it that made America so great historically? What the hell was it? Because that's what the founding fathers, even though back in the day, they would have identified, because they came from England for the most part, and France, they would have identified as liberals. But today, yes, well, because of the Austrians and the Germans and on places such that in other parts of Europe, they would have all realized that, listen, you libertarians or liberals, you're so closely aligned. Like that was the beautiful thing. It was that aspect of promoting the individual. And like I say, Ayn Rand, do you know who Ayn Rand is?
Sorry?
Do you know who Ayn Rand is?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Because like Ayn Rand is another one that helped. While her objectivist philosophy, once again, it didn't necessarily, and actually she disagreed with libertarian to some degree, but at the least, whether you're talking about in the most Western parts. So like I say, you take France, England, Ireland, Scotland, all that part of the Enlightenment that would identify as liberals, right?
Yes.
Then you had the Germans, the Austrians that more would have maybe with more libertarianism. But then you also have Ayn Rand. Like this woman, her dad owned a business in Russia, St. Peter. So as far east, like
As you can go.
right? So even across that entire landscape, there were movements that happened spontaneously, basically because of people that had a good, firm grasp of morals, ethics, and a philosophical underpinning. Ayn Rand said, like she contributed a lot of her thought processes to Aristotle. Now, I mean, this is a Greek philosopher from 2,000 years ago, but they all use that same underlying pinnings of respecting the individual, sovereignty, self-ownership. Every one of those philosophies came as a direct result and a consequence of those underlining pinnings of how important it is to respect the individual and to be free from forced subjugation. Now, they come up with different formulations. Ayn Rand basically come up with her own pretense of morals and ethics under her philosophy called objectivism. Now, they still left a little bit, to be weeded out and worked through. But like I say, they helped advance a lot of people. Now, unfortunately, opportunists took people like Ayn Rand, especially the corporatists, the vulture corporatist types. They took Ayn Rand's objectivist philosophy and said, well, now it's all about economics and who, screw everything out. But no, that wasn't, like I say, even if you understand Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism, there's a moral underpinning built and entrenched within it. It's just that some people will be opportunists and take advantage and say, I'm going to make that my own, just like today. The liberals, I mean, the federal liberals, they call themselves liberals, so they love to use that banner, right? That's a tagline. that's a logo that they realize that it's got a lot of prominence in the Western world.
It does.
Right? And we're going to use that. And that's why a lot of people could keep falling for it. But once again, it's take off the facade. Once you, like I say, peel off that top layer, you see like, okay, it sounds like they're using the term liberalism, but it's nothing even remotely resembling what they're trying to suggest or put forward. So, like I say, the history is there. We've done, and it's not even done yet. Do you know who Stefan Molyneux is?
I've heard the name. I'm not familiar with.
Okay, well, he's actually a very early adopter of YouTube. I think he started his channel in 2005, 2006.
Okay.
Actually, my first channel, I think it was April of 2006, really early on. It was.
Wow, yeah, no kidding.
Had nothing to do with this. It was all when I was ripping on my wheelers and racing and stuff. Anyway, but he was wise back then, and he started his own philosophy show. And now it's the world's largest philosophy show on the internet. It's called Free Domain Radio. Actually, now it's just called Free Domain. Yeah, not radio. It started out radio. But anyways, but he has created his own form of secular ethics, because that's the thing. What we realize, those of us that are trying to break free from God or government as a means to our end, morals, in terms of morals, is let's make this more of an objective standard. So that's what Ayn Rand tried to do, and Stefan Molyneux. But everyone that have come to the realization, every time he calls his UPB, universal preferable behavior.
Okay.
And it's totally universally consistent. So he's saying like theft can never be universalized, which is so true. And it's very, it's not just abstract, but it's very, like, if you read through it, you realize it makes total sense. But you can never universalize theft to be good anyway, because once you've done that, then you've destroyed the very concept of theft, right? So, because if it's good, then it's not theft. If it's like rape, you can never universalize where rape's okay, because then it's not rape anymore.
Yeah.
But so, like I say, there's lots of ways that we can try to secularize these ethics. But until we've done that, and Nietzsche was very wise when he was trying to figure this stuff out back in the day, is once you destroyed God as your moral principle, well, the only other thing that you have to pivot towards is a deity that's in human form. So,
some other sort of
a monarch, right? A friggin' pharaoh. No, but a politician, a political.
I agree.
So what they realize is, okay, we're probably not going to be able to keep the God thing going forever, because humans are always going to advance their mind so that they don't want to believe in mysticism, which is good, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of good that we want to get away from mysticism, because we want to have some kind of level or objective standard for things. But if you're going to destroy God, well, then you have to come up with a secular way. Some people like myself, I'm fortunate, like I say, I was raised, fortunately, had the right kind of people in my life that I can still use God, even though I don't believe in the magic man, but I can still use those moral underpinnings and realize that it's an abstract moral. But if you don't have a mindset like myself, well, you better at least offer in the secular world something that's going to replace that, right? And it can't have anything to do with government. Now, Ayn Rand did it with her philosophy of objectivism, and I think Stefan Molyneux has even built and expanded on his, which took a lot of what she talked about, and like I say, introduced a few other aspects that helped work through some of the contradictory natures of her own philosophy, because she was all about the objectivism until you need government for certain things. And I get that. She was still playing that realm. And I mean, how can you blame the woman in the 1940s in Russia or moving to the, yeah, of course you still believe that the state's going to still have an overarching role. But Molyneux has built and expanded on it to the point where, like, if we all start realize these things, is you don't have to go towards a mystical being. We can create a form of secular ethics, but it's going to require a concerted effort by people from so many communities, and even the scientific community, and people that are even atheists themselves. Richard Dawkins, I can't believe even Sam Harris, even some of these guys are starting to recognize this. Yeah, damn it. Just like Nietzsche said, if you're going to kill God off, well, you better make sure you've had something to replace it before you do so, because the minute you've destroyed God as your inherent abstract morality, something's going to fill that void. So you better, and you know what, that's the thing I think is most important today that we're seeing today, and it's actually happening behind the scenes that most of us aren't even seeing. There's a lot of people in the scientific realm are now trying to figure out a way to explain that we have what, I don't know, like some inherent gene, I guess, right? But somehow at some point in time, hopefully we'll figure out a way where science will be able to explain morality just as easy as they can explain math or gravity. And I hope we do get to that point, and I hope it happens fairly soon, to be honest with you.
That would be nice. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I agree with that. I was going to say something, and literally as I went to say it, it left my mind.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I know I tend to go on. You know what I would say?
But just that happens.
Yeah. But yeah, you know what I do too? I just for future reference, if you want, I sometimes I'll keep a notepad, or even just the notepad on my computer.
What I've been doing is I have my little
okay, right.
Right papers right here.
Right on.
I'm writing things down, but the problem is I'm also hands over here, and it's on the side where there's no room for paper, so I'm writing with my other hand, and then I can't read it. So it's a lose-lose situation for me right now.
Right on. Well, like I say, anything else that you wanted to cover? So we've kind of talked, we touched down definitely on it. Let me just see, because I did write a couple points down here myself.
I think we were also going to mention that the election results. I don't know if that.
Right. Yes.
You didn't do your stream, I don't think, on that. Did you?
Well, I went to do it, but it didn't seem there was a whole lot of interest. Well, I know that a few of the other guys that are pretty dominant, a lot of them did it quite earlier. So what I think probably everyone was like, yeah, I've heard enough for.
I'm too upset about this already.
Yeah, I just give me a little time. So I was like, yeah, I wouldn't even bother. I'll just kind of put it, because if it wasn't going to be too popular and people weren't kind of up to it. Plus, it was short notice, so I was like, well, I'll just kind of leave it alone. But yeah, as far as the election result, actually, you go ahead and you start. What's your thoughts on that, if you want?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually I actually watched the live stream you did that day, and I think you brought up two of my comments.
Okay. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
They were. So it was my first time voting in a federal election. Not due to. It was due to my own accord. It was I was 18 by the time the first time Trudeau got elected.
Okay.
I think he was running against Harper, and at that point Harper was kind of not too popular.
No.
Was it Jack Layton running for NDP at that point? I can't even remember.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. At 2015, was it Layton or Mulcahy? No, it must have been late. 2015?
So I think he was.
That's popular, a good question. Yeah, I'm just actually. You know what? Tell you the truth, I can't even actually.
I can't remember
Layton, or because when it comes to DP, well, the social.
It doesn't matter regardless, but
I do somewhat pay attention. Well, I know what their platform is. I just don't hope they ever come to too much power. That's the thing. But anyway, regardless of whoever the leader was. But go ahead, sorry.
So it was. I looked at the candidates. And I was kind of just like, at that point. Again, I mentioned I wasn't really into politics. So at that point, I didn't really care, and so I was like, yeah, whatever. As long as Trudeau doesn't get a majority, I'll be happy. And then, sure enough, I think that night, I think. I read that he got into power, and I was in like a big Facebook group. So I was in college at the time, so everyone's like in a college. Everyone's like, yeah, Trudeau, like rah rah rah. And then I was kind of just like, immediately I just posted like Justin Trudeau. Like I don't want any of this. It's just I don't feel like it's going to go well. And then now we have stuff like the carbon tax, which I'm not going to get into right now. This year was the first time I voted, and I was pro-conservative when Ontario had their election to get rid of Kathleen Wynne, who's just the worst thing on the planet.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you saw the results for that one. Did you ever see the results for that one?
Oh yeah, they got down to 7 seats. They lost official
They lost
party
their
status,
official
everything,
party
which was
status.
good. That was good. Actually, that was the beautiful thing that I took away from that. It's like, Ontario people at least sent a clear message at that point in time. But I think the media did an exceptional job of really fucking the Ontario people up on the federal side in terms of painting and portraying Doug Ford and such. And that's like, to me, at the end of the day, it's the people, like I say, the people in the media are the ones that are the driving forces behind what people conceive or perceive in terms of politics, which is why if they lack the morals and ethics to be, neutral or unbiased, then that's basically where and you see this election result basically turned out to be the same way, is whoever has the most dominant influence and the dominant sway in terms of opinionation, in terms like the minds of the masses and affecting how they think. Well, the Conservatives look like they were gaining power across the entire country, like in terms of pushing back against. And I was really emboldened by that because I seen every provincial election was pivoting away. But then once you got to this federal election, because of the way the Conservatives were portrayed, and once again, I'm not even saying that I'm a big fan of Scheer. I'm definitely not. But no. I did immediately see and notice that, the media was pivoting towards it. Whatever they've got going on, Trudeau had to get back in power some way. And I realized that, because when you have that much concerted effort, it's so, a little channel like mine or even someone like yourself, you're not going to compete on a grand stage or a grand level with these people because they have, and that's the other thing, experts. Right? You got to be, once you get that accreditation, right? All you have to do is say that I'm an expert or I got some diplomas from some, it gives you this kind of false sense of credibility that actually doesn't really mean a whole shit. That, like, to me, it's like the Pope, right? He's at the top of his particular level in terms of
absolutely
the Catholic Church, and because he's the Pope, but that's the thing, is there shouldn't be a label that you can place on anyone that gives them some automatic inherent advantage. You should be able to test the hypothesis of what they say against genuine objective knowledge or some pretense of morality. But once again, once you've created this era or atmosphere where there's some people that are thought leaders that should be respected and everyone else shouldn't, well, I knew that it was going to be a difficult task. But I actually thought, because I seen how Brexit played out, I seen how, the U.S. pivoted towards, not saying Trump is a great guy, but I think all the American people recognize that point in time is like, he's the only one that's challenging the status quo, right? That was it. Can you get us out from underneath the particular thumb? Like, there's still going to be a thumb at some point in time trying to, on our neck, or a boot. But can we at least get out from underneath this one? Give me a little bit of time, some reprieve. Get me some breathing room. So at least I thought, well, because England did it, and actually a lot of European countries now are going through their own transitional process trying to get out from under that. I thought, surely Canada, come on. We got to be close enough or aligned to our historical roots, whether they come from Europe, that this is going to carry through, and we're going to have at least some semblance of showing. But yeah, I was so disappointed when I seen not just that the PBC didn't gain any extra seats, but even Maxime Bernier, the Conservatives, all they had to do was get that cartel to band together and make sure that because Maxime's had that seat since 2006. But because he didn't want to play a game with the ruling establishment of the Conservatives and keep playing this cronyism game, well, they showed that they had, and Canadians sent a pretty clear message on the federal stage, which said, no, we want the status quo, which tells me, well, I kind of already instinctively, but when I do my videos, I try to be more positive than, like, if I'm thinking amongst myself, I usually is like, ugh, I don't know, right? I try to be more positive in my approach. Yeah. But I did recognize, because I understand that in Canada, there's already, I don't know if you've ever watched my past videos, and it actually took Neil MacDonald, it was 2016, 2017 article that I've saved so many times in archive, make sure I always have it to pull up if I need to, is there's 4.1 million Canadians that work for the government. Like, to find those kind of details in any article or any information brought out by the government, it's so hard, right? You actually have to do like a million different things to try to add up. But this is one of those few times where it was actually publicly reported at that time how many people in the a local, provincial, and federal level, there was at that time, and like I say, it's already a couple of years ago, 4.1 million Canadians that work for government. So I already recognize that the adult population in this country, there's at least 4.1 million minimally that are never, ever going to vote against the ruling establishment. That's because they all benefit from it. And who would it? Self-interest, right? Self-interest. But then you got to think about, then you got the crony corporations, you know, they got the dairy cartel. Then you got like these big the banksters that get bailed out under the Harper regime. I mean, there's just so many people that are at the trough. It's like, I realized that it was almost an insurmountable task at this point. This is when you get to that late stage democracy, when you have so many pigs feeding at the trough, it does get to a point where the precipice, like the scales, it's just, you can't overcome it. And I was hoping that at least Canada, I thought we can't be there yet. And no. I don't know if the election result proves that we are, but it's not a good sign at the very least.
No, not at all. And now I got a few things to unpack here.
Yeah, go for it, man.
So I'll go back. I'll start with I'll go back to what I think you started discussing, like because this will tie into my next part. But so with the media, especially with the Ontario election, is I always promote the independent media. I never promote the big ones. I say, like, even though they don't have as much range, like I think you have right here, you have 7,000 subscribers on YouTube, I think 1,400 likes on Facebook, or whatever followers, I don't know what it is.
A little under 14 or yeah,
okay. So I always promote things like that. In the States, I promote Breitbart News. I think they're absolutely fantastic. And then like any other like small, like little independent pages that don't receive funding, or if you do receive funding, it's through your own work and you're presenting the material from your own point of view, as opposed to, you know, what you're, even if, let's say, even the CBC, CTV, let's say they don't have government funding, they still have funding through their advertisers, which is going to create bias, because, you know, the advertiser's like, oh, I'll pull my $10 million out if you're going to promote me in a negative manner. And if you're not going to, even if you took the government away, it's still not completely honest. Whereas someone like you don't, I'm assuming you don't have advertisers or anything. So it's
I mean, other than I have monetized my YouTube channel, so there is monetization, but I have no like sponsors.
It's not like direct. Sponsors. That's it.
And actually, anyone that's ever asked me this, I'd even gladly, if anyone wants to, I've done it a couple times in the past. I'll even screenshot and show you. You know what? Actually, you know what? Because the election played out and they suppressed my. Well, see, like I said, I don't like to be conspiratorial, but it seemed like my videos and everything got suppressed tremendously over the last month and a half. And I mean, I was getting less than even 1,000 views for each video. But for this month, I'm not even going to get paid, because YouTube doesn't pay out unless you get $100. And I'm at $56 for the month. So I'm definitely not in this for the money. $56 based on like the views and all that stuff. And what it is, it's probably a kind of a little bit of a fault of myself, but I don't like doing the mid-roll ads. Like, you can make more money by
during the videos.
I usually just do the thing at the front, right, and then let it go. And I don't, I feel like I might be being a little bit greedy, and to me, at the end of the day, it's the information is more important. I mean, whatever economic benefit, of course I would like to. I have to live like everyone else.
Absolutely.
But to me, at the end of the day, just show me that Canada's getting more free, and like that's way more of an advantage to me and my family than any few bucks. I'll worry about the bucks. Me and my family, we're a close family. We'll take care of each other. We'll be okay. But I will say that anyone that's thinking that, like, that people like myself, like, at 7,000 subscribers, and even, you know, like when things are doing decent, I get 2,000 to 3,000 average video views.
Yeah,
that's not like, I'm not making money. I'm literally that is not an incentive for me to do it monetarily, but I figured that I might as well take advantage of the fact that I'm providing something. I should at least get something in return.
Yeah,
right?
Even if it's just like enough to, you know, buy some groceries or
pay
an internet bill or something, like just to keep it going, right?
But I agree. Independent media that doesn't have like influence by big money it's huge. It's huge, which is why, and I've done this for a long time, even when I started my channel, because I had other people that did it for me, help like support my channel, promoted my channel. So every time I've seen people that have started their own channels, I always, you know, I'll promote them too, because that's very important. That's what we need to do, is to help each other out by promoting each other's channel. And I thank you for doing that there, Josh. I really do.
Yeah, no worries. It's just something I've always done, and actually you just mentioned that you don't, like, you said you don't want to be a conspiracy, but you feel as though YouTube kind of censors videos, that kind of thing. I think you mentioned that really quickly.
Well, there's a fair amount of evidence, but to me, here's what it is with me. And I suppose this is the part where it probably drives people nuts is, and it's hard because it's so much easier just to go with your emotion based, just, oh, it feels this way. But unless I have 100% proof of something happening, that's why I stick to the macro stuff and things that are usually built and based on philosophical aspects, is because I don't know. I can't know every subjective thing, and nor do I want to get into this thing where I'm saying things that I don't have any conclusive proof of. It probably is the case that there is political division inside even these social media companies that are affecting certain people from political backgrounds or persuasion. But like I say, until I have 100% evidence, I don't want to put that out as the premise, because at the same time, when I think about doing that, then I'm placing all the blame on these social media executives and giving all the Canadians or Americans that have access to these channels a get out of jail free card where they're not held responsible. No, I think what it is, maybe my channel just doesn't grow because people don't care about their freedoms as much as I do. Yeah. That could be the case too. So I don't like to play that conspiratorial games, but I definitely do think that there is some manipulations that does affect people from particular political persuasions, right? So I don't know. I don't know how that is, but I don't use that as the baseline of why I'm doing poorly, because once again, that's also removing my own personal accountability, right? It's like, if I can blame everyone else for my failures, well, what the fuck is that? I might as well just turn towards being a socialist. Right? No, so it could be just me. And I recognize, because I am one of those people that are so blatantly honest and can even be a little bit, forthright when I'm talking about these things. I really shoot myself in my own proverbial foot all the time, right? Because I recognize it'd probably be much easier if every time someone commented or was on my channel, I just gave them platitudes, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I'm one of those people that I like to tell the cold, hard truth. And my whole life, I know it can be counterproductive, but usually only with people that haven't gotten to the point where they actually want to think objectively or honestly about things. The people that actually take things serious, actually really, really, one thing I've noticed is the people that do care about this stuff as much as I do really appreciate the fact that I'm honest and forthright in how I approach things. So to me, I'm just going to keep doing it, whether I can be rewarded economically or not. I'm just going to do it and hope for the best, I guess.
Yeah. No, and absolutely. Now I got a couple of things to say. One about the YouTube and one about what you were just saying with being honest. And I was going to really quickly unpack this and then move on. But it comes down to the economic thing again, the welfare state versus that. And it's when you're giving people something that they become adherent to that. And, they always expect. It's about expecting dishonesty or, being rewarded for not working. And it's the same thing. I actually I'm also a personal trainer. A lot of personal trainers will feed you a lot of bullshit to make you keep coming back. And so I don't get paid. I do it for free. It's like, it's like my friends and family. It's like, if you want to lose weight and get into better shape, I will help you as long as you stay dedicated and you work with me, and I'm not going to charge you. Obviously come during my time. I'm not going to take time off work to help you. But then I have some people who they'll ask if they're making progress. They'll be like, no, you've done nothing. And I don't think some people don't take the criticism very kindly, but it was the same kind of thing where it was, some people don't want the honesty. They'd rather you lie to them and say, oh yeah, you're looking great and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, that aside, moving on now. So you were saying that you weren't 100% sure. You wanted some sort of validation for if there is any YouTube biases that's causing this censoring of channels. And actually just this week, a live stream came out from, I don't know if I should say other channel names, but I follow Louder with Crowder.
Go for it. Yeah, dig in, man.
So Louder with Crowder, they're big. They got 2 million subscribers. They're big American. It's a satire.
I follow Crowder all the time.
Oh my God, I love that. So did you see the stream this week about Tulsi Gabbard?
No, actually, I haven't. Tell you the truth,
okay, I haven't. I will send. If you follow us, I won't send a link. But I was going to say I can send it. I actually looked it up, so I have a link with me right now.
Yeah.
But it was Tulsi Gabbard's running for U.S. president.
Yep.
And
so she's really good on the foreign.
I'm sure you've heard about the stuff between her and Clinton right now, where Clinton called her a Russian asset, and then Gabbard essentially called her a like the queen of warlords, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it was I did this myself too. All of a sudden on YouTube, if you had your VPN set to, so say you live in the States, your VPN's automatically set to being somewhere in the States. If you look it up from a geographic location within the United States, you cannot find her channel.
Wow.
And then, but then I like, obviously I live in Ontario, so I looked it up and I was fine. But then Crowder released this video, so like, oh, okay, I'll try this out. Switched my VPN at work to the States and looked it up, and you can't find it.
That's
so
crazy, huh?
And it's just, I don't think she has a ton of subscribers.
Well, what I've always liked about the Tulsi Gabbard is she more or less even resonates. A lot of Ron Paul's stance in terms of foreign policy resonates with her. And it's so important for people to understand. And that's actually why Ron Paul had such a great showing and why libertarianism even took off. And that was basically the 2008 election that helped put that, especially because of foreign policy and after the
absolutely
2001 is that the blowback and stirring up the horn is so important. And the founding fathers, that's the thing. And he literally quoted, some of the amazing quotations that the founding fathers had put forth is, let's trade and interact with countries, but there should be no, meddling in the foreign countries' affairs. Because if you do that, and that was actually, that's, if there's going to be a downfall to the American empire, it is going to be this messing with and foreign influencers or supposedly trying to bring democracy. Like, you can't use force as a means to an end and think that that's going to be beneficial. Now, even the British did somewhat of a better job, I would say, historically, in terms of trying to get the places that they tried to colonize up to speed and understanding like the Western values and principles. Right now, the way America is doing it, the war hawks, the neocons, or they want to call them, or the military industrial complex, which once again has to keep their budgets, right? You have to always keep something pumped. But yeah, the way that's working now is they're greatly destroying and degrading the pretense of American exceptionalism in terms of being a force for good or peace around the world. Now you don't even have that as an underpinning of what the West is supposed to represent in terms of the most amazing power on the planet. To be a referee is one thing, but to be a foreign influence or try to impose your way in countries. And I kind of understand. Listen, I understand why some of these people want to do it. Like some of the shit that happens around the West and especially in Iraq and those places. Yeah, you don't want Saddam Hussein to be able to deny your ability to have economic interactions or engagements in the Middle East. But you know what? At the end of the day, if you stir up the hornet's nest and you use violence or war as a means to an end to conquer or to create a scenario where you can get your economic prosperity. But look at what they've done too. Like now you've created more warring factions within the Middle East that used to be kind of somewhat contained. And like I say, that's not something that was even worked through very easy under the regimes of whether you're talking about Iraq or Syria.
Yes.
We don't know what's going, just like I would never, like how fucking arrogant would it be to think that you could even go to I have a neighbor, but I wouldn't be so ridiculous to think that I should be able to go into their house and tell them, like, because I don't know all the history. I don't know all the people and all the interests and what. Like I say, the only way freedom has ever properly come to function and flourish and exist in the long term, predict their jurisdiction of their country, fight for it themselves under the proper ideals. If you try to work, you're just replacing one kind of dictatorship for another.
Yes.
No, you have to inspire these people. That's what I mean. To me, rather than sending bombs, missiles, or drones to the Middle East, and sending books, pamphlets, and historical philosophical literature, maybe that might have been your best thing to help to get the people in the Middle East, right, to raise against their authoritarian regimes. But yeah, foreign conflicts, well, not only has it been a detriment in terms of millions of people that have suffered or died as a consequence, now we have this thing where people that are from those countries, and they're trying to do it now, which are using our democratic processes against ourselves, right?
Yes.
We create a scenario now we're like, we've imposed and caused harm on them. Well, not me. Now, you're right. So I hate using that collective term. I'm actually totally against it. But those who are authoritarians or these neocons, is now you're seeing the blowback. And look at how that's playing out. Now you're causing division, not just in the Middle East, but now we're all divided. And we're all seemingly playing this stupid game of might makes right. And at the end of the day, in a world filled with not just nuclear missiles, but all these amazing advancements in terms of weaponry and technology is there. Who the hell ends up being the winner under that situation? I just don't even know how you get a winner out of that kind of equation.
I just don't feel like there ever will.
No.
Yeah, I don't think there ever will be a winner in this kind of thing. I mean, you push the wrong button and then all of a sudden you got, I don't know, like, I hope it never comes to it, but you have like Russia and China that are both, for some reason, like not, like, I mean, you see with Hong Kong right now, like China keeps threatening actual military retaliation against like protesters for freedom. Like, what if you go to the wrong country and they decide to retaliate in the same way? Or, you know, one of the other big countries decides to ally, like, okay, we know we'll help you out. You scratch our back, I'll scratch yours. You know, and then all of a sudden you have World War III because you're trying to spread freedom in a way that you really doesn't really make sense that you're doing it that way regardless.
Right.
But you know, each to their own. That's what the states feel like they need to do. So, I mean, now you have Trump pulling out. He pulled out of Syria now as well, didn't he? And now people are.
Yeah, actually, that was one thing I will say that I'm kind of happy. The problem with that, of course, is I totally get how people will be able to make an excuse and argument where, well, but you know what? In reality, I mean, they say, well, you shouldn't step out now. They even said that on, you know, for Iraq is, well, now you've made it so that now that, well, listen, no, what you should have done is never intervene in the first place. But no, you can't spend, you know, not just your time and your exposure of all your military men and women, but all your resources. I mean, it's been trillions of dollars since 2001 that the U.S. has spent and squandered on these inventions. Listen, worry about defending your border. And the beautiful thing about North America, which tells you how terrible the media is at properly educating foreign people in terms of foreign policy, is you got two gigantic oceans. And then you got, even though there's some conflicts between like our neighbors, you know, people that historically come from the conquistadors of Spain or Portugal, right? That's basically what represents most of South America, or the French and English in Canada. Is no, at least historically, we kind of all had this same basis and understanding is we should stick and confine ourselves with, you know, dealing with our own domestic situation as best we can, protect ourselves when there is foreign aggression or even domestic aggression, but we're forced in terms of geography of having thousands of miles of two gigantic oceans to protect ourselves from any foreign invasion. So that when you're in a situation like that, to cause or impose harms in places all around the world, knowing that you're kind of already have a massive amount of self-protection and, like I say, the largest military, at that point in time, you do kind of look like the bully, which is why so many countries around the world can turn towards being anti-American, which is like you're destroying all of what America represented. These neocons have destroyed everything. And the founding fathers of America were alive today, they'd be rolling over in the grave saying, no, this was not the pretense. This was not the purpose of the American experience, of the American culture that we tried to create.
Sorry, I'm just reading. I got the comments going over here.
Oh, yeah, actually, I will mention there, Josh, because, I don't do it because I don't want to interrupt the person I'm interviewing because, like, you know, I try to focus. But, if you want to even just, take some questions from the chat or because, like, I could sit and ramble all day. I never
see it. I got talking. I'm looking here. I got the camera sitting on this monitor, and I can just see like pop-ups just constantly going right here. It's like, what is going on over here?
Yeah. Like I say, well, actually, today seems to be a little bit lower, but the people that show up the stream are usually really good as far as talk about things and putting out some questions. So let me just see even myself what we got here.
Sure. My
problem, of course, is I always try to go through them all but you just can't.
They come way too fast.
They do. Trust number. Hey, thanks, by the way, for everyone that has shown up to the stream. I appreciate everyone showing up. I know everyone's got things to do. And like I say, I'm always grateful to see the people that show up because you're all the ones that show me every day that you care about the same thing that I care about. And, that's what keeps me going, right? If I never seen this, I probably wouldn't take me long before I'd say I give up. Right? But I got some pretty good peeps, and they do inspire me. Bennett rambling again, nothing new. Plant Boy 100. Yeah, see, he knows. No, I do tend to go on a rant. Yeah, as you get to know me, like I say, I used to even joke around. I said with a couple of people in past videos, Joe Rogan, he does his 3-hour live show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could probably put Joe into submission. He'd be like, "All right, I'm done, man. I'm done. I just can't talk anymore." Like, I probably could do like a 9-hour episode and still be like, "You what the fuck? He still got something to say." I can't believe it. I know it's crazy, but that's actually somewhere that's an area where I do got to be better at my own self-regulating. I do tend to there was a teacher I used to have in grade 8. He would use this awesome terminology. Mr. Helter, and this was in Scarborough, Ontario. He'd say, "You got a case of verbal diarrhea there, boy." Bit of a weird way of or weird terminology, but yeah, I do. Like I say, there's never been too many times in my life where there's awkward silence.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I'm the opposite, where it's as I'm talking, my brain just can't keep up with what I'm wanting to say, and then all of a sudden I'm slurring my words, and then I stop and just sit here and look at my notes, like, okay, I don't know where I'm going anymore.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. It's just with me, I've forced myself. I jammed so much crap into my head over the years. Well, what it is, and I say this to people all the time. Please, at the very least, even if you don't ever watch one of my videos, or well, you'd have to watch one to hear what I'm saying, I guess. But any more of my videos is, my God, like I say, we live in the age of information. I know historically, if you were poor, and I come from a poor background, I mean, even just to get, and I've said this multiple times in the past too, and the people have already heard in the chat be like, "Oh, you're saying that again?" But even just to get a set of encyclopedias was a big deal when I was growing up. It was a couple $1,000 venture for your parents to go out and buy the entire book of encyclopedia, right? But today we live in an era we have access to not just the encyclopedia, but basically the breadth of all human knowledge, all the philosophy, all the history, all the science. It's all literally at our fingertips.
Yes.
Why wouldn't you, at the very least, like I say, you don't have to agree with me, you don't have to, but at the very least, test out the hypothesis or anything that anyone's saying. Just at the very least, yeah, open another window and start going through that investigative aspect of, does this make sense? Does it correlate? Does it align with anything historically? Just start doing that. And because once you've educated and informed yourself properly, then you are now in a position where you don't feel that you're subject to someone that had to jam information. Now you've done it for yourself. Now you're learning how to think for yourself. Now you're not just sitting there. And like I say, the best way to do it is not necessarily watching my video. Do it after the fact. Do it in the privacy and the comfort of your own home, and there's not someone looking over your shoulder, scrutinizing you or telling you you're bad or you got wrong think, or just do it under the, like I say, under the guise of your own personal life. And trust me, if you've done so, and you go through like some of the history, the literature, the philosophy, you'll come to realize, like the rest of us, is, and it requires, you have to weed out the chaff. But if you're critically thinking human being, or at least inquisitive in any way, you will come to the same realization that most of us that respect individual freedom and liberty is, this is the only thing that we have that is not just baked in the cake of the human experience, but the only way that we get to separate ourselves from the animal kingdom, right? Where we have morals and ethics and do things that's not just solely self-beneficial, but ultimately at the end of the day, because we do recognize that we don't live in an island all ourselves, even though I want to do it, that's like people say, like business owners, oh, they're just greedy. But actually, if you've ever owned a business, you said you're an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
So you would have your own first, and so have I. So you would have your own firsthand experience and knowledge that to be a business owner, sacrifice yourself a whole lot more than even just like, you could go to your local grocery store or your retailer and get a job, and you won't have to sacrifice a whole lot of yourself in comparison, in conjunction to if you go start your own business. Start your own business, you got to be a slave to your, well, not a slave, that's kind of a negative connotation. But you've got to be willing to sacrifice yourself to your investors, if you have any, or your consumers, the people that are helping provide any of the products that you're trying to do, your industry. All you have to be willing to put yourself in a standard that is above and beyond than even just the typical person that goes to work for someone. I know myself, it's much easier to just go be an employee, right?
It is, absolutely.
Oh, it's huge. And I mean, the roles and the responsibility is simple because of our division of labor and our modern Western cultures. Division of labor means that a lot of us, I mean, well, especially if you work in some of the auto manufacturers, you could just learn one tiny little routine.
Yes.
I do that all day long. For Josh to be the business owner, you got to have not just your personality in terms of sales, but you have to have charisma. You have to be willing to do your math, and you have to figure your economic business modeling and how productive it's going to be, how much you're going to have to spend. You have to, like I say, appeal to your consumers, and when they tell you that you've done something wrong, you have to be able to figure out how you can explain them. But I want to keep your business, but at the same time, maybe like it's so hard to be a business owner. You have to do a million things to try to appease so many people, and it actually gives you, it's a humbling and a sense of humility actually to be a business
It really
owner,
is.
which is why when I hear people that are socialists, it's like, damn, you've never owned a business in your life, have you? Because if you did, you would understand. No, these business owners aren't like your typical monopoly guy with a fucking
No, it's not.
on, right? That's not a typical businessman. It's not the maniacal monopoly guy with a fucking little lens and like just raking in billions of dollars at everyone else's expense. That is literally not, especially if it's anything even remotely resembling the free market. Now, of course, use government as a means to your end. Well, of course, you don't have to worry about catering to people because you just, hey, you have to do it. But someone like Josh here that created his own private business, this is a man that has said, I'm willing to sacrifice a lot of my own, even your own self-esteem at sometimes, because like, oh man, some people say some stuff where it's like, I would love to tell them otherwise, but in the long run, I want to maintain their business. So I'm going to try to cater to them as best I can to maintain. Like I say, it means you have to have your own ability to sacrifice some aspects of that other people aren't willing to do, which tells me that the business owners are the one, which is why I can't ever fall for the socialists, because they try to paint business owners as these evil people. But no. I've seen too many people, and even my own family, my stepdad, he's a truck driver with, you know what? He has a grade 6 education. He's one of those guys that historically, in the absence of anything remotely resembling free markets, he would have been a slave to some big corporation for his whole life. But because he started out driving truck, saved up enough, his first truck was just an old used piece of crap International, cost him $25,000. But after a few years and a few truck trade-ins, he became, he had a company that was raking in lots of money, had I think 7 or 8 trucks, owner operators under his belt, and that gave that man, but it gave him that ambition, that goal. He realized that, if I do all this work and effort, I can genuinely reward it, even though I didn't have a whole lot of credentials in my past. And, that's the thing that I like to see. That's the beauty of the free market, is people that if you put in your work and your effort and you show that you're goal-oriented and you're ambitious, that's why I want the free market to flourish, because I want to see people like Josh. I want to see people like my stepdad. I want to see all kinds of Canadians or people that they're benefiting, successing from their all hard work and efforts without government being able to destroy their ability to do so.
And I don't want to get back into the whole socialism thing anymore. I think we're past that for today. But the same guy that I had this argument with, when he argues that he argues that shouldn't the employees be, I don't want to say close, I agree with that, but close to, like, they should receive the same income or close to as the business owner. And it's like, absolutely not. That was one of my arguments with the minimum wage thing, is they were trying to get more money. And they didn't, when you go to work for somewhere, it's not like you're signing a contract to take on part of the risk of the business. You take literally zero risk. If that business goes under, you don't lose any money. You pack up your stuff, you go to the next one. There's no risk that you're taking on. And that's where I have an issue with some people, is they come in, they don't want to work because they don't care. It's just a job for them. They get their $14 an hour. They work 4 hours. They go home. They have benefits. They have EI. They have CPP is a joke, but they have everything else. Mm-hmm. And, they're safe. They're not like the business owner who takes $30,000, opens up their place, pays $5,000 a month in rent, pays $10,000 a month in inventory, has to do marketing, products, wages, salary, taxes, everything. You have to pay for everything. And then I can take whatever's left over, providing I have room in my income bracket that I'm not going to get taxed at 40%.
Right.
And then it's a different story altogether. But
yeah, I'm not sure where this comment, like I say, I've been a little behind on trying to catch up with the comments. I see the spy pagers. Do you blame Harper for avoiding the media? I'm not even sure where that came from, actually, to be honest with you. Let's find another one. If you ever experienced any negative entity, evil spirit, you would change your mind. What the hell? US
Lord.
Okay, that's kind of I don't know where that's coming from. And like I usually get people in the chat. And now we're going into UFO stuff. What's up with that? But anyways, I mean, you will have to work for pros. Like I say, I'm just trying to see if there's any questions in here. Trying to stay down close to the bottom rather than going all the way back up here. One thing I will say in terms of Harper, actually, to answer that question, the spy patriot, one thing I blame Harper on is because of that economic crash, and the millennials would have had a much better and a profound effect if the banks weren't all bailed out under the Harper regime. They thought they were going to help put this economy or keep and sustain it, but in reality, what should have happened is just like what happened in the US, the market and actually the housing market should have properly given the ability to crash and have market fundamentals actually reset it to a proper price point. I think that would have had a much better reflection or effect on especially the young people. I mean, like I say, if you're a baby boomer bailing out the banksters and all that stuff, it was great because it kept the status quo humming along, and you could every year your house was just like this proverbial gold mines. And I mean, I've seen all the studies too. A lot of people today, and not just boomers, but of course they're the generation that definitely get to take most advantage of it because that's when most of these socialist schemes started happening. But anyone today that buys a house that started in this early, like got in early on the Ponzi scheme, is everything every year that goes by, nobody has to be held to account economically anymore because let's say you bought a house in the GTA or Vancouver or Montreal or not so much Calgary because they're having some pretty hard times out there. But any of these places, like I say, that are still being pumped up, rock bottom interest rates, is yes, every year that goes by, let's say your house goes up to the tune of $80,000 over the course of the year. Well, then you can now, because you have access to these HELOC loans, home equity lines of credit, now you don't even have to be viably, you could actually, might not even have a job for that year, but against your house. So let's say your house went up by 80,000, take out another 30 or 40,000 of that as in your home equity line of credit, and then just divvy that up and make sure you've made your mortgage payments for the next year. Right. So you can still make your mortgage payments all year long just by borrowing against the house that you're already indebted to of buying it. But you can pull all that forward and keep yourself going for another year. Now, that's good for you, but it's also keeping that market speculation valuation higher than any typical millennial can afford to buy. So you're basically pricing your kids or your grandkids, depending on what generation you're in, out of their ability to get themselves even in an entry level. Right. And actually, in reality, there should have never been any point in time where houses were considered an investment. That's one area that I'll say that, other than using central bank policy and manipulation of interest rates, that can now create an area where people realize this is a scheme to get into. But historically, a house it's a roof over your head, right? It's not supposed to be like, I'm talking obviously private dwellings. I'm not talking about commercial or industrial development, but I'm talking for a private dwelling. There should have never been any area or aspect where central banks or central government policy can create a Ponzi scheme in terms of roof over your head. That's an essential. That's a necessity for people in life, right?
One of the food, shelter, and
right. Eat. Kind of eat, right? Kind of got to have some. That's the other thing when people talk about inflation these days is they talk about the way the economy. Oh, it's 1% inflation. No, actually, that's because they out of the CPI is they've taken food, fuel, and housing out of those, right? Because they say there's too much variables involved, so we can't keep them in part of the. But you know what? If you strip the necessities, I mean, if you're just talking about television, radios, computers, it's like I don't need a radio. I mean, it's nice to have it. I love having it. I don't need a computer. It's nice to have it. But I really do to live. I really, really do need a roof over my head. I need food in my belly, and I need clothes on my back. Those are the areas where it's like people don't even understand like all the proper economic drivers which influence inflation. In reality, if they were all included, people would see that. Now we're not obviously at Venezuelan type inflation, but people would realize that actually the inflation rate in Canada, especially for the working poor, people on the lower end of the economic scale, it's fucking it's so outstripped from their wages that people, that's why they're having to extend and pretend, right? Now, just back when I was a kid, to get a car, like to go out and get a loan for a car, 3 years, man. That was like, and if you went beyond 3 years, you're like, what are you, crazy? In debt for a car for any more 3. Now it's like 8 years. Right? 8 years for a car. Like, what are you, insane? Like, but that's what it is. They've made the valuations so much higher, but how they make it work for people is extend that pain over a longer period of time. But in reality, now you've destroyed your ability. It's the unknowns in terms of economics. So yeah, you're going to spend the next 8 years paying off that car. But what if you were still back historically, you only have to pay 3 years? That would mean you had 5 years of that economic viability that wasn't going to a car. Maybe that was going to, get a business loan and a payment back so you could start your own little venture, right? There could be so many areas that people would be able to use their productive capacity. It's all now being to maintain just anything remotely resembling to keep, like I say, the roof over their head, food in their belly, and clothes on their back. And a little bit that's left over, well, they're basically like getting their devices and their entertainment by putting it on the proverbial credit card, right?
Always.
Yeah.
Or paying the credit card off with the credit card, one of the two.
Yeah. Oh, I know lots of people that have done that. Oh yeah, you get yourself. That's quite a little scheme you can do too. Like you get a credit card, you make your minimum payments on that one. It's quite a scheme, really. But like I say, it's not good to have an economy built on these kinds of schemes because
no. It's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to keep going further down.
Anyways, let me pull this. Let me get rid of this comment here. Let's see what we got here. But and another thing
that one's in reference to anymore.
What's that? Sorry.
I don't know what that one's in reference to.
Yeah, I don't even know yet. Kenny wanted to be the leader of the CPC and moved back to Ottawa. Oh, Jason Kenny. That's another thing. Even some of these guys, when you function in this thing where it's that race to the bottom, you have to learn to play that game. That's the problem with all the politicians today. Some of them might even have goals and ambitions that aren't necessarily about using government as a means to it. But if that's the only tool in your arsenal,
you don't really have a choice.
All right, what do you do? How do you compete when everyone else is using big government, central planning, monetary manipulation, and printing of fiat currencies? That's the problem with the West today. Is how are you going to compete with places that are willing to do that? Well, I don't know. Well, actually, that's the one thing I will say about Trump and how they're trying to pivot to this, what they consider a completely different world order, is at the end of the day, I'm not even a fan of protectionism. I'm a fan, but what I have recognized instinctively, and it's kind of counterintuitive for me to even say these things, but yes, if you want to have free markets fundamentals as the basis for your engagements and your interactions economically, then the only countries that you can truly trade with are the ones that are going to adhere to them. Because if you're going to trade with companies that aren't going to adhere with them, well, they're going to beat you every time. Because if they can use manipulation, monetary manipulation, slave trade, slave labor, how are you going to compete with slave labor? Just like today, mass immigration, white corporations are on board with allowing mass influx of immigrants into our country. And not, like I say, not that I'm blaming the immigrants, not at all. It's all about incentive at the end of the day. I have nothing against, and like some great immigrants. As a matter of fact, I have nothing against. The furthest thing from pointing to an individual saying they're bad is because everyone's a person. But the incentive is to literally constantly, it's this race to the bottom. It's like, what wasn't capitalism about raising and elevating and competition? Because in reality, competition never takes you down, right? Competition is always striving
better product, better prices,
right? Always a higher level of success in some way. Whereas this constant scheme we're playing now, it's that race to the lowest common denominator, which is why all the central banks, when they have those G7 or G8 or G20 meetings, it's all these central bankers and big government proponents that are getting together and say, well, if you're going to devalue your currency, well, if you do it, then that means all the market investors or bondholders are going to head towards your country because they're going to want to have some kind of safe haven to store some of their value or maintain or retain some of the value. So I guess we do the exact same. So once again, now we're all forced in this lower race to the lowest common denominator, which at the end of the day, what does that mean? It means we're all end up in, and it's so reflective of the reality, and we're almost there now. Was it 8 people in the world have as much wealth as the rest of the 50? Well, that's the thing. We're going to end up at that bottom. We're going back to serfs and subjects and a ruling class. That's basically, and like I say, 2,500 years ago, we tried to figure out how to break free from that, but now we've come back around and now it's back to this race to the bottom. But if it means that the West, and like I say, I'm still not a fan. I'm still trying to work through some of this tariff bullshit and but because I'm not a fan, like I say, I'm not a fan. I am a free market proponent, but I also have to be pragmatic and recognize, but if you're always shooting yourself in the foot by allowing other people to manipulate and gain some economic advantage at your expense, you're going to fail at the end. So I guess at the end of the day, just like me, if my neighbor kept ripping me off every time I traded with them, I suppose at some point in time, I got to stop trading with my neighbor. I don't want to. I love to be able to freely trade with my neighbor. But at some point in time, I guess I have to kind of hold myself to a standard and only trade with people that aren't going to try to manipulate things.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And that's the part where, like I say, as a libertarian, it's so hard to try to explain this stuff. And you can't do it without what we're doing now in long form. Because if I just typed in a comment, someone would be able to say, oh, look, Bennett's a proponent of protectionism. Yeah. I'm really not. I just, like I said, I just have to deal with the world that actually surrounds me. I can't, what it is, a lot of people that say things that everyone wants to hear is they're willing to place themselves in a world that's something they make up, a magic land that we would like to see exist, but doesn't actually exist. I'm one of those people that I have to reflect on the real world. And the real world is we don't have that ability. We have to figure it a way. Maybe decentralizing, maybe cryptocurrencies, they might have a profound effect, maybe going forward, where we can kind of help each other and hold. Sorry, go ahead, man.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you.
Well, like I said, I don't know what the answer is at the end of the day, but there has to be some method. And like I say, I don't even rely on people like myself. There's tons of geniuses on this planet that can figure this stuff out. The difference is, are they given the voice? Are they given the opportunity? That's the thing about the free market. There's probably maybe dozens of people that have come up with lots of ways to get us out from under this kind of centralization. The problem is, do they have access to a market where they can put their ideas in the real world? I don't know. Yeah. Central banks and big governments, they probably don't want to allow them, right? So that's the problem, is how do we create a scenario where we can get back to free markets and the fundamentals? I think cryptocurrencies are one of those things that can at least give us hedge. It's a hedge. I still don't think it'd be something that would be ideal, because if you're dealing with something that's only based on digital ones and zeros and in the crypto or the online sphere, well, then the minute you lose power, you lose all your wealth, right? So there has to be other areas where we got to figure out ways to decentralize and make ourselves more economically viable without big government. But at the very least, there are some people that are bringing ideas to the table that, like I say, if we can help support these people, and like I say, be prudent, make sure you're not, falling into some scheme, because that's another thing. I probably could have jumped into the cryptocurrencies many years ago. I knew about these things, but I was a little bit hesitant myself, because you never know how this stuff's playing out, right? Everything, if it sounds too good, right? I don't know, but it
really is. That was one case where it wasn't, though. That was, I mean, now it is, but
I mean, at the very least, it does give you, just like if you go back historically, people that had to use things such as tally sticks in England or tulips in the Netherlands. Anything that you can do to at least find a way to exchange your value with other people, where you can get out from underneath central bank or central governments, because they can really manipulate your worth, your value. That's what they're doing every day when they're artificially stimulating the economy. Like you were saying, minimum wage.
Yep.
The only reason why we even need a minimum wage is because they keep artificially inflating the prices, because that's what, when you create money, print money without genuine demand, if you just artificially stimulate the economy by print money, well, the only thing it does is devalue and degrade the assets or the commodities that you do. So now you're going to have to raise those prices. And if you raise those prices, well, if you recognize, well, the only way people will be able to pay for those things is because you have to raise their wages, it's just a dog chasing its tail proverbially for the rest of its life.
Ever. Yeah.
Right. So you never get anywhere. Like I tell people all the time, listen, 40 years. Well, I'm 48, but when I started work 15, so 43 years ago, I started work when I was 15. I made $4 an hour starting lumberyard it was 1985. Today, even if I'm making 3 times that amount, I'm still not getting any more purchasing power. Actually, I'm seeing a degradation of my purchasing power, even in comparison in conjunction to $4 an hour. Yep. I used to joke a couple times when I'd go to work. I worked with a couple guys in construction the last few years.
Okay.
And I even joke with them, just because I like to do this stuff just to get people thinking. I'd say, listen, he'd say, how much you want for a salary, right? Like a wage. I said, tell you what, I'll work for $1.25 an hour, but you have to pay me in silver quarters prior to 1966, because at that particular time, silver was trading at roughly $20 an ounce. So 5 quarters gives you roughly an ounce of silver. So if you think about it, even $1.25 in government money, but if you correlate that to what it would actually be worth in actual tangible commodity value, silver, it'd be like me making $20 an hour.
Yeah.
That shows you how much, central banks and government policy and central bank policy has destroyed the purchasing power. When I could literally work for $1.25 an hour, but it would have to be based and built upon an actual commodity that has real world value. Whereas the plastic or paper that we have now, that value is completely subjective and at the central bankers' whims, right?
Change that, like,
yeah.
Just like at the drop of a hat, and
yeah. Okay, let's see what else we got here.
Someone rolling in right now. What is
John Doe? That's original. So many people talking down on Doug Ford's policies just don't understand the rationale behind them, and they aren't willing to look any deeper than the media headlines. Well, I mean, at the very least, Doug Ford too. I'm not even saying he does a great job. But he's at the very least. Listen, the big thing in this country in particular is the bloated bureaucracy in public sector. That at the end of the day is that's what's going to truly be challenged. But so many people benefit from it that Doug Ford and everyone's going to realize that you challenge the ones that get their government by government largesse, and that's not going to work out so easy. They can really vote. Well, look at what they've done. I mean, they portray, and I'm not, like I say, I'm not even a huge fan. I tell you the truth, out of the both brothers, myself personally, I think Rob was a better guy personally than Doug Ford. I think Rob, because he seemed like a more of a salt of the earth kind of and I get he on the whole crack thing. But you know what? That just told me that, so this is a fallible fucking dude like everyone else, and he didn't put any pretense that he's not. So that's the kind of person I respect, right? I actually
amazing morals too.
Yeah.
He was actually.
Well, I mean, I watched that video where he sat there and he had all of these freaking cards.
City Center, right?
Yeah, that was amazing. Like, how many fucking politicians would actually sit and do that? Say, look at how much benefit not just me, but all the council.
Yep.
Like, how many people would sit and do that? I mean, like I say, either he was the most savvy political stuntman ever, right? Or he was just like a truly a man of the people that was just trying to, give people some real information to get to think about these issues critically. And I think that's what Rob was doing. Who gives a shit if listen, people do drugs, people do some foolish things. What they do in the personal life, as far as I'm concerned, when it's in your own personal life, it doesn't have any effect on me and as the public.
As long as you're not spending my money,
him and his wife, him and his family, and the people that surround him. I don't give a shit what the hell. At the end of the day, is if you're going to be in control of policy, is what are you doing in terms of showing how principled you are and your willingness to hold power to account. And he was even willing to hold him. He was the one in power and saying, I don't deserve this. Like I say, how many politicians say that?
They think they do deserve more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I like Rob. He was a pretty good dude. Doug, I think, seems to be more opportunistic and seemed to be one. But still, at the very least, once again, I'm pragmatic enough to recognize, well, it got rid of the friggin' win liberals. So, corporate welfare. Okay, what we got here? I can say I voted Harper, even accepted what he plays along with the QC files. Never agreed. You voted Harper, even accepted what he plays alone with QC files? Maybe along, was that what you're trying to say? And corporate welfare. I'm not even sure what that means here. Trust no one. That seems I don't trust anyone that likes to manipulate. Like I say, Harper pretended. I even heard people try to suggest that Harper was a libertarian. Like, how the hell could you say he's a libertarian and he built out all the banks? Like, what? You don't know what a libertarian is, do you?
You can't do that.
A libertarian builds out the banks. Like, no, sorry, no, that's just not going to work. And like I say, and in reality, it wasn't that I didn't understand that there was going to be some economic harm, but actually, like I say, when people say economic harm, it was only going to be for the ones that were benefiting from the scheme. Like I say, the millennials and the younger generations, they were going to benefit. Like I say, if you were an American citizen and maybe a millennial that getting ready to have your kids, you were really, really happy that the housing market crashed and you could go out and buy yourself a home, right?
Yeah.
So that's a subjective.
That's what I'm waiting for.
Right. Well, that's the right. That's the subjective aspect of it. Is yes, who's benefit? K bono. Yes. Like I say, lots of people that get in on the scheme, they want to benefit, but it's still, like I say, have an effect. Even my own sons. I got 2 sons, and I'm even seeing that effect even on them, where like they're postponing their ability to start their family and get into, because try to get into a house. And I feel even myself like a little bit, I want them to be able to get in a house, but I can't honestly say, yeah, go buy a place in one of these major urban centers, because I think you'll probably get away with it for a while, but eventually you're going to be, like I say, you're going to be that last one on the bottom of the pyramid scheme that's going to be stuck holding the bag. Right? It's like, I don't want you to do that. You buy a house today for like, $800,000, and then let's say in 5 years, it's worth 230 or something.
Exactly. That's
like,
exactly it.
why would I want to tell my kids to get in on something like that? It's like, now I can't predict that, which is why even for me as a parent, it's like, I don't know what the hell. I don't even know. That's the thing. We're functioning in an environment where you can't even try to figure out what's good advice economically anymore, because there's so much manipulation that takes place, which is why people are in such disarray and so divided. And can you help? Can you blame them? They don't know which way to turn. And I think they look at each other. We're turning, pivoted towards each other and pointing the fingers at each other. And in reality, actually, most of us, we're just victims of a very small elite group of people that have a lot of power to manipulate, like I say, the media, the political establishment, the banksters, right? The central bankers in particular. There's a lot of people that are manipulating us, and they're making it so that we feel like we have to oppose each other. But in reality, like I said, if we could all get back to let's just get back to the free market. Doesn't mean we're all going to benefit, but at the very least, it's going to give us some kind of proper cost analysis in terms of proper economics. Like I say, people would be able to realize that, oh shit, that house in Vancouver that's basically dilapidated. No, it's not really worth $2 million. It really isn't. Right? At least it would give people some better understanding or grasp on economics, and give them a better way to think about these things going forward. Anyways, Josh, what's up? I'm going to leave it up to you, buddy. Do you want me to keep scrolling through the feed?
I was gonna say, we can keep going a little bit.
Okay, cool. Okay,
I have a lot going on, so.
Okay, cool. United Nations can't manage their own budget and want to control the whole world. Well, I mean, there's just all a United Nations is just, once again, another bureaucratic body of central planners that, don't respect people's individual sovereignty. That's actually, when you talk about sovereignty, they talk about the states. And rather, to me, as a libertarian, rather than going from 200 states, not that I'm a statist, matter of fact, I'm against statism, but rather than going the opposite way, as authoritarian collectivists say, is where we go to a one world government, is I want to actually, the best place that we could ever function in this world is to have 7 billion sovereign citizens, right? Never mind sovereign states or sovereign provinces, is if we had sovereign citizens, if we were all respected and acknowledged as being free human beings. That to me is what I want. So anything, I don't care if you're talking about globalism, and when I say globalism, I want to make sure that that's in contrast to like global trade. I'm all for but globalism has a defined meaning as well, right? It is a particular ideology where we're trying to create a one size fits all for 7 billion people. Like I say, that can't ever happen. The only thing that, like I say, that you can have that could be universalized is morals and ethics. But when you're talking about economics or social policy, there is no one size fits all approach. Some people like to do things some way, and who am I to tell them to do otherwise, right? I don't feel that I have that right. But the only thing that can be properly universalized is morals and ethics. And like I say, you're not going to get that through government, because government, by its inherent nature, or these bodies, are a representation of force of violence. So if I'm, like I say, if I'm pointing a gun at your head to tell you to do something, am I really moral? Right? No. Like if I raise my kids, matter of fact, I could have raised both my sons, using the stick like a lot of parents in the past, right? The stick or the wood spoon or a rubber whip, I could have done that. But did I really teach them anything? No, I taught them to be conformists. I taught them to not think critically. I taught them to never step outside the bounds of what I told them they were allowed. But did I create a free society or free human beings? No, I just created conformists. So at the end of the day, I don't think that's a proper method. And I realized as a father, the best thing I do is try leading by example. That I think is actually...
That's the number one thing you can do.
Number one thing that, forget about the best way you can affect your culture is just lead by example. Doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody, but at the very least, that's the best. And it does show that doesn't mean you're going to be successful in every venture and everything you do in your life, but at the very least, you'll see it'll pay off dividends for most of your retirement. Like if society broke down tomorrow, I have my family that we will be able to rely on each other. Why? Because we did the right things to make sure that we treat each other with respect, or not just my family, but my friends and people that I associate myself with, is because we've all interacted voluntarily. And I don't need to worry about that. They're going to do it because they're scared of me. They're going to do it because they love me or they care about me. And because I've shown that I was willing to do the same thing. And that's, like I say, if you expand that out to a societal scale, that's the best way to keep our freedoms flourishing and in check, is allow people to have that freedom and hold the people that don't want to adhere to those principles, hold them to account. That's, if you don't, you're not going to end up with a properly functioning society or a family.
I would agree with that.
We really don't have any good leaders. Well, that's true, Trish. We don't really have any good leaders. It will be difficult for Max and the PBC to go too far, unfortunately, because MSN will keep knocking them. Well, that's true. Well, in terms of politics, you're absolutely right. But that's where I say, and me and Tim have had this conversation multiple times, when you're talking about politics, it's like I say, it's one of those things you should be. That's why we need our cultural leaders, or you got to go to a religion, whatever you need. But yeah, if you look to politics for people to be your leaders in terms of, because really, I would imagine what you mean is what's right from wrong, what's the right thing to do, is you can't look to politicians to be a good moral leader. I mean, even Tim Moen, I mean, we're great friends, and me and Tim talk. He's the leader of the Libertarian Party all the time. It's like, tell you the truth, Tim, you make the worst politician ever as a libertarian, because that's the thing is, if you're a libertarian, you talk about truth in objective sense, and you use morality and ethics as the basis. So to be a politician, it's like trying to play both sides of that, right? It's like, which is why libertarians, people say, well, why has there never been a libertarian? Right? It's like, well, because it's really, really hard to convince people to be moral and ethical when the very basis of the pretense of your position of power is immoral, right? It's like it's like the parent that was raising the kid, and we've seen this, well, especially from my generation growing up, because being beaten by stuff was just normal when I was growing up. But I remember, like, even a kid like getting into a fight in the schoolroom or a schoolyard in the playground, and the parents will come along, or the teachers, the principals, and they'll take them out and to the woodshed or into the principal's office and strap them or beat them and say, you should never use violence as a means to an end. Like, wait a minute now. Why do you think I learned that as a kid? Why do you think I used that as? Do you think I might have learned that somewhere? Right? So that to me, like I say, it's the hypocrisy of it all, which is why politics is a terrible way. Well, and no, it's the people that are part of the cultural drivers, people in arts, entertainment, like all those things, like say movie, music, and religion. Those are the people that are the ones that you pivot to. The ones that don't have any power, really. The people that you want to get your morality from are probably people that aren't seeking power. At the very least, like I said, I don't care where you get it from. But at the very least, if I could tell someone just a quick line to tell them, just if you're looking for morality, just please don't look for people that also have the pretense of looking for power, because those things don't work very well together.
No.
Right. But okay, so let's see what else we got here. We need to get rid of, decentralized. We need to get rid of the federal government and the Senate. We have our provincial leaders and mayors. That's all we need. Hey, I would agree, Trish. The problem is, though, all these ideas that we think about is that's the thing where we have to affect the culture. Where in a democracy, we need a plurality of the people to be thinking the same lines you are, because if a minority of us are thinking that way, well, once again, we're still living that dystopian world that's never going to come to exist. That's what, like I say, I'm glad the politics is done. I'm glad this election is over. And I'm going to try my best to reach out to, like, even my kid. He's very musically inclined. Whatever we can do to, like I say, get people that are, in areas of arts or entertainment, or people that are dominant in their culture. We need to get these people stepping up the plate to promote the kind of principles and morals and ethics that I think are the drivers, because people will look more towards someone from Hollywood today, right, than they will to so many other people. It's like, if these people were good moral or cultural stewards, then I'd be fine, and that would suffice. But we definitely need someone to step up the plate, and rather than this constant divisive politics that we're hearing, we need people that are out there inspiring. We need the people that are the cultural drivers to have the dominant sway and influence, which means we have to support them. I say this all the time too. If we want to use platforms such as YouTube, well, that's another area. We do have people that are challenging the status quo. The problem is they have entrenched power, central banks, and basically access to the entire world's purses and wallets. So to counteract them, we have to support each other. That's why, like, people like myself or Josh support all the people, whether it's in their business or their like my channel, support the ones that are doing the right thing, because we have to have support and to be able to counter if the dominant power and influence is constantly come from those who have entrenched power, then we're never going to be able to counteract them. We're just going to be basically sitting and functioning in an echo chamber of whatever, I guess, based on the PPC results. I guess there's roughly 300,000, 292,000 Canadians that are more conducive with accepting and promoting personal responsibility into freedom. But think about 300,000 in a population of 37 million. That's a really tiny minority, right? What can we do other than going and check a box off every 4 years? What the hell can each one of us do to affect our culture? Well, when you're out talking to people, when you're hanging around your friends, like I say, lead by example and support, like Josh was saying, support, whether it's me, I don't even care if it's me, support anyone out there that's got a YouTube channel or a Facebook page or a Twitter page or Minds or Gap, any of these social media platforms that are trying to pivot away or offering a counter narrative to the ruling establishment of the status quo. Help support those people, because we can't, if we forever remain in a minority and don't have the ability to have an influence, well, our voices aren't, well, they're just like, well, it's like whispering in a windstorm. You're never going to be heard, and you're never going to function. I mean, it's good therapy, like for us and me and Josh, it's good therapy for me and Josh to be talking with each other, talking about these things, but it's not helping out a large substantial portion of the population that aren't conducive with getting this message, which is why we got to share it. Really, at the end of the day, we have to share all this stuff with a lot of people. And even though it might be uncomfortable to do so, I'll leave that up to each one of you individuals to figure the best way to do that, because there is no, it might be that you're just sitting around, hanging around with your buddy one time and something comes up and you're like, oh, well, I heard of this guy, and you just sit there and you talk, or you, whatever you got to do. But like I said, you got to help shift our culture towards people that are actually thinking critically about these issues, or at least giving you a counter narrative. Because like you were saying earlier, Josh, you support like alternative outlets and stuff. But I also, one thing I do, and I do tremendously, but I also share a ton of stuff from the establishment media outlets. Why? So that I can offer a counter narrative, because I want people to see. So this is what you're being told by your thought leaders in the media. But I'm telling you that I'm going to show you that I'm not going to hide or suppress what they're telling you. I'm just going to offer you, I'm going to take the exact same issue or topic that they're dealing with, and I'm going to say, here's another way to think about that, right?
That I would agree with.
And if you've done that to me, because that to me, and people say, I get people actually all the time say, why do you deal with CBC? It's like, well, you can ignore your enemies or your opponents as much as you want, but they're not going away, and they actually have a lot of influence. So I'm saying is, if I was sitting in an audience and people were just watching a CBC program, I'd at the very least want to say, well, hey, can I tell you what I think about that?
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you, and at the very least, I guarantee it's going to make you think, because if you haven't been given that, the only thing you'll be susceptible, without me offering or interjecting an alternative narrative, is you'll be susceptible to that kind of propaganda or that closed-minded area of how they, and I don't know if you've ever noticed this, Josh, when they bring panels on, and it took me a while to figure just how they'll bring a panel on like CBC and they'll say, so this is a conservative pundit, this is a liberal pundit, this is an NDP pundit. But at the end of the day, all three of them are still going to be proponents of big government. It's just they have they're going to be a little difference in terms of how they want their policies to unfold, but they all agree with each other, and government is the answer, right? So I'm saying, so if I'm going to be the only guy in the room, although they won't ever allow me in the stage or in the recording rooms, but if I have access, because I have access to YouTube, if I can bring them into the fold, say that this is what they're saying, and here's a perspective that you've never heard before. That, like I say, that's the kind of thing that plays off dividends, because I don't expect people are going to agree with me automatically, but at the very least, it's making them question the narrative they've already heard. Chrystia Freeland was involved with the overthrow of 3 governments in Ukraine. Yeah, the Ukraine thing, I know those guys are going through some hell, as if they didn't already go through some stuff back under when Russia was giving them hard times back in the day. The kulaks. You know about that there, Josh? The kulaks back, when Russia was
back in like the Soviet days. Yeah.
Soviet days, yeah. It's like, I think it was like 5 million of them basically starved to death and trying to collectivize, the agricultural industry and take it
Yeah.
over. That was a perfect example. I mean, the Russian people at that time, they realized it. I mean, it took them a little while, but even the Russian people come around to realize that no, we can't keep this game going for much longer. I mean, it was devastating, and that's the part that I always worry about. And I hope I'm so optimistic that sometimes I think it can be counterintuitive and not beneficial, because I think, yeah, but we can do that before we get that far. But I always think, well, this election is kind of like, shit, maybe we got to go through that kind of hell too. And it's like, I don't want that. I'm one of those people. It's like, I don't want us to have to drive over that cliff, right? Damn, there's a lot of pain down there at the bottom of that gorge. Can we at least start hitting the brakes a little bit? It's like,
Yeah.
but I don't know, like incentive, and because the media has so much influence, and people aren't given the proper tools or the ability to think critically about these issues, I'm starting to believe, and I don't want to because I don't like to be pessimistic, but I'm almost starting to think, really, is this why history is just full of this, constantly doing the same thing over and over? The reason why they call them revolution. Are we really going to have to go through this all again?
Yeah.
Damn, I hope not, Josh. It might turn out to be the case, though. Oh shoot, is somebody might have donated. Sorry, I'm on the like I say, I'm on the StreamYards. I don't know if they show. Oh yeah, someone did do a super chat. I don't know if anyone else did prior to that, because I don't see them unless I'm actually on the YouTube side of things. Like right now, I've got on your side. When you're looking at your screen, are you just looking at the YouTube side of things? Are you right?
Me?
Yeah. See,
no,
right.
So on my main screen, I've got like our the actual what we're talking on. And I got YouTube over on my second monitor over here.
Okay, yeah, because I'm always I'm staying on my StreamYards, because then there's no delay. But then I missed out for some reason on the. But I want to just mention, because if someone does a super chat, I really appreciate that. So I see Gato is in the stream. I see you, Gato. What's up? Gato's he's a pretty good guy there. He's a pretty smart dude. And where is he at? I've give him moderator status on the channel, because he's really good in terms of keeping everyone in check, not being ridiculous and stuff. You get some people that troll the channel, and so I every once in a while I get some troll. I don't tell you the truth, if they're just personally attacking me, I don't give a shit. But if they start messing with people in the chat, I don't like that. You know what I mean? Now where the heck did I almost lost it there? So okay. Well, I guess you don't actually have a question then, I assume, John Doe. Well, I do appreciate the $10. I appreciate that for sure. I thought you might have had a question, because if you do want to do a super chat, take advantage and get a question in there, because like me or Josh, either one of us, I'm sure would be more than willing to answer any question you folks might have. Okay, let's scroll down here. Yeah, I was way back up compared to where I. Okay, Edward, let's see what we got here. Oh, yeah. Well, the lumber. Well, I don't know about this, but this Calvin Abbott, the lumber industry is. But I did hear this morning another bunch of jobs out in BC. Hell out there. Like, if you think the oil patch wasn't going through, heck, now even the BC forestry industry is going through some pretty hard times. And a lot of people. Did you see what happened for BC there, Josh? BC, the whole, like basically the eastern interior of BC, it all went conservative. These are people that want economic development as well. But of course, the posh, western aspect of that left coast, like, down there, Vancouver or left central, they totally went like, to the left, the dark side. Like usually they benefit from the big government. But see, that's the beautiful thing about what people like myself suggest, which is, like, if you want to, I don't like the fact that you have to do this to remove the kind division. But if you want to remove the kind division in this country, is decentralized. Like I say, I don't hate these lefties or these collectivists to the point where I want to destroy their ability to do what they do. I just want them to see how much they'll figure out on their own, through their own fruition, through their own efforts, that it's going to be. So I want the lefties. Go your lefty. Matter of fact, if Alberta and Saskatchewan, the productive, the more capitalist oriented parts of our society, let's separate. I'm not saying that divorce is a great idea. It's a terrible thing, but unfortunately, if you're in a relationship where you just can't find no way to find common ground, well, actually, like I say, you might have to separate, and that maybe that separation might be enough where it'll send a real world. That's the problem with the socialists, or even in Quebec. They want to have like no pipelines, right? That's what the Quebec, the scientists, and they all vote. There is no way you're going to send. There's no, what was the word they used? Forgetting about the word they were used. Anyways, forget about that. There's no viability that you're going to bring a pipeline through this province, right?
Yes.
Okay, but a lot of I think it was $13 billion last year, come from wealth transfer payments from those parts of the country, Alberta and Saskatchewan, that are oil and gas producers. So it's like, okay, if you don't want the benefit of that, I'm all on board with that. You don't want oil pipelines going through your province, fine. Matter of fact, if you want to go all renewable resources, you do your thing. But then you shouldn't be able to benefit, right,
from the oil
by stealing or plundering the resources of the people that do work in the oil and gas sector, right? Yeah. Like, what is your thought on that, Josh?
See, when I look at the economic system in Canada, the oil and gas is our number one contributor to GDP, and GDP is not necessarily inaccurate. I get that, but it is
actually tell you the truth, Josh. Just to fix that, it used to be, but now, do you know what the most housing market is actually now the big and now,
but I think oil and gas is still one. At least the survey I looked at was
it's one of the top drivers for sure.
It was a little dated.
Yeah,
but oil and gas was the biggest. I think real estate would have been second, and then agriculture was third. And those were like the three. Liberals don't really. I don't know how accurate this is.
Right. No, but either way, it doesn't matter. Go ahead, finish your thought there.
It was just, and that we have that plus that we are getting our oil from. Like, look how the states have. I'm not saying their economic system now is great, but they've saved a lot of money since they started using their own oil resources, because they're not buying it from overseas. And then people want to say, like, okay, develop your own oil. It's going to be bad for the environment. What people don't see is that we can produce it here. It's all produced. It's essentially produced in-house. Shipping it across the country is a hell of a lot easier than shipping it overseas from, let's say, Saudi Arabia. We don't have the fees of the ships aren't going. So is it environmentally friendly? Oil and probably not. But is it more environmentally friendly than buying it from somewhere else? Like how many thousands of miles away? I would argue yes. I think the pipeline is not a bad idea. I think anything to try and keep Canada's economy within itself and keep money. Like, obviously, our country can't keep money. So we struggle to use our own resources. That's what we should be doing. That's what we should try to focus on, is building ourselves back up rather than relying on outside.
Yeah, well, that's like perfect area even for the people that are like part of the green movement or environmentalists. To me, they should be the biggest proponents of free markets, because if you want to create a sustainable renewable resource industry, the only way you're going to know how that's going to be economically viable is by allowing the free market. If you constantly subsidize it through government, right, you're not even going to get to a point where you have an actual price floor or a mechanism that tells you what these things are worth. That was always the problem with all these collectivist regimes or authoritarian regimes in Europe, is there's no way to figure out what there's a price. And you know what? People don't take this into account, how important it is and how prices even come to function. Prices under free market, it's just a reflection of what we're all willing to pay, right? It's all volatile, and there's no maniacal central planner. It's just based on what we're all willing to pay or can afford and what's viable. And that's the thing. I'm all for it. I fully believe that's the thing. These issues is, yes, of course, the dinosaur juices of millions of years ago for the rest of our lives, for all of eternity. So we're going to transition eventually, disrupt businesses and sectors of the economy that have contributed to and benefit people economically to the tunes of millions and billions. Rather than destroying that, is just allow market competition to take place. And like I say, even these oil and gas investors under a free market environment, like I know, if let's say I was a big oil executive and I wanted to keep my business sustainable, or I wanted to have a lasting legacy in any way, I'd probably be like, okay, we might have 50, 60 years of reserves at our speculative increase in population and all that and consumption, But I know that at some point in time, we're going to have to transition. Well, I would want to use a lot of that economic prosperity that I'm benefiting from selling oil and gas to invest in the renewables. But what they're doing today is rather than allowing proper business investments to take place and people like the market to be the dominant influence, is no government saying, let me steal from these people and I'll put it over here and put it in the hands of these people that didn't come up with the ideas per se, but are willing to use government as a means to an end. Not the best stewards, right? Not the best, not the most efficient people with the resources either. As we all know, I mean, come on, at the very least, when you're talking about government, whether they're on the right or left, come on, at the very least, I think everyone can recognize not the most efficient way to spend your money. Right? So come on, the market will find the most efficient way to allocate the resources, whether it's in renewables or in the there can't be this thing where we just landlock all of our oil and gas in this country and just automatically transition to a whole new like these people that like these central planners have such grand visions that it's if you think about it, it's quite maniacal to think that, because what it is they're not even taking into account that's millions and ultimately billions of people that you're talking about affecting their life. They're so far removed from anything that has any sense of compassion for the rest of the people, of morality, that they're willing to try some kind of social experiment. They don't know which way it's going to turn. Like I say, I mean, look at the communists. I'm pretty sure they thought, we're going to give the working class, we're going to give them their rights that they always did. But what the fuck? You know how many millions of working class people you destroyed their potential and their livelihoods? So like I say, at the very least, like I say, if you're a proponent of transition to renewable energies, really, at the end of the day, you should be a major proponent of market capitalism, or just markets in general. Just allowing, because free market, when you talk about free market, all that really means, the market, that's just people. Right? Yeah. So when you say free market, it's just like saying free people, because free people do much better than people that are shackled or in chains. I mean, is that shouldn't even be
sense, but
right. Anyways, go ahead, Josh. Whatever you want to say there, buddy.
I was just going to say it is going on 1:30.
Yeah, sure.
I have to meet a client at about 2 o'clock or so.
Okay, cool.
I don't know when you wanted to start wrapping this up at all. I don't know how things normally go.
Yeah, no, like I said, I totally leave it up to, because like I said, you don't want to leave that up to me. I could go on for friggin' days, but because I do enjoy, especially when I'm talking, because you're a smart guy and I like engaging with people. It's important for me to reach out because I like to hear from other people, especially I'm really glad because you're a younger gentleman. How old are you, Josh?
I'm 23.
Oh, that's so awesome. See, stuff like this really, really makes it tells me that there is some hope for the future. No, but
there's a lot of young people. I mean, there's always going to be the ones in school are always generally, but in my area, there's a surprising amount of people who have the same kind of mindset. And I don't want to say that like I'm listening to everything in a vacuum or my own like little thought where everyone's the same, but there is a lot of people that think the same way. And I think the younger generation is starting to see that, especially people, I don't want to say like around my age, but I want to say people like between the ages of 5 and 10 right now, their entire life has been under liberal government. So realistically, they should be seeing like, okay, this is what happens when you have a big government. They want control over every aspect of your life. They want to control guns. They want to control media. They want to control speech. They want to control thought. People are going to see that and they're going to start thinking, hey, like maybe this isn't the best option for the way we live. Maybe we do need more freedom, and not just economical freedom, but everything.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, like, for all those people that and like, you are one man, but I'm only one man too. And don't ever sell yourself short. Anything that you can do, and I don't care, you don't even have to even mention my channel, but anything that we can do to connect ourselves with each other, and so that they know that, because that's the thing I think is most important for the younger people that feel disenfranchised, and I totally understand why they are, is at least let them know any time you get there are people like myself that are from the older generation, and we're not in that boomer mindset where you just you do what I say, whatever like that. And you know what, we can, even though there's a generational gap between us, especially I firmly believe for us Gen Xers, because we were probably one of those. I think we were the last generation that still kind of had a little bit of semblance of understanding some of the historical precedent, but we were also conducive with the new technologies. And I mean, when I grew up, like I say, as a teenager, computers started when I was in my teens. So we're lucky that we still have a lot of the old school residue, and it does come with some negative baggage. I'll admit that.
Absolutely.
But fortunately, we've also seen both sides, flip sides of that, and new technologies, innovation, and like I say, because we've been more savvy in terms of, well, we were the gamers back in the day, and started out on asteroids or Bong and all that. Pong or whatever, but we're also fairly, like, we're not nearly as tech savvy as some of you younger folks. I totally understand that, but we're at least someone in that age range that I think we can all kind of come together. And of course, we're talking about individuals, so it doesn't mean that every Gen Xer is going to think the same way I do. But I think, and like I say, it doesn't even mean that we have to deny the boomers. There's lots of great boomers out there too. So let's just find a way for all of us generations to make ideas matter, and not ideologies, but ideas in terms of what it is to be free. Because at the end of the day, especially for you younger generations, because I have two sons that are in your age range that are millennials, of course I care about myself. I have to. I mean, no human would survive if you didn't make sure you took care of yourself. But because I am a parent, I really care about not just my kids, but all your whole generation. Because at the end of the day, that's the other thing of and I'll just say this and I'll tie this up, is that's the aspect, that's the aspect of, without big government, is family. The importance of family is that we all understood is, and I've said this many times too, we come into this earth naked and reliant on everyone around us.
Yes.
But the beautiful, whether you want to call it just the law of nature, evolution, or God through a creator, no matter how you want to look at it, the beautiful aspect is we all go out the exact same way.
That's what I was going to say. So you took it right out of my mind.
And that's the beautiful thing. Like, whether that was designed by a creator or just evolutionary processes, that's the beautiful, that's that free market. Whereas, my own kids, let's say if I didn't have government to take care of me from cradle to grave, the only thing I would have left at the end of the day is making sure that I'm taking care of my kids, my community. And hopefully by doing so, I've done that initial investment, and I'll get that returns later on in life when I need them, right? That's that beautiful reciprocal effect that has worked throughout all of history. And if we can get more of us to realize that, especially young people, is hold the older generation to account, make sure they're being responsible and not offloading like all these debts on you. And then, like I say, when the time comes, you'll be able to help the people that are worthy of your help, right? And because hopefully they've done their job of helping you. Like I say, that's that reciprocal effect. We don't have to rely on big government, central planning, or wealth or income redistribution. We can rely on the tried true methods of just treating each other with respect and dignity. And that, at the end of the day, if we can do that, like I say, the sky's the limit. Doesn't mean that I'm thinking that everything's going to be perfect, but you as a young man, you could play a key and pivotal role because you're smart, you're wise, you've already started yourself a business. Get those people that you do have around you that you can influence. And like I say, it doesn't matter if you want to tell them about my channel or other people, but get them to realize that there are people that aren't just in your demographic that really do care. And if we can combine forces and come together, like, we really truly can be a force to be reckoned with going forward.
Absolutely. I believe that.
Right on, dude. All right, man. Well, like I say, thank you very much. Did you want to say anything? Like, I'll let you just say whatever you got to say, and then I'll just.
I was just. If you saw me laughing before, I was flipping through the comments down at the bottom here.
Okay.
Some of them are rather humorous. The one here that got me going was I'm not even sure. I don't want to pronounce that wrong. Roll Doc. And just I'm not going out of this world naked. For some reason, seeing that just.
Yeah. Well, it's not necessarily because they do kind of dress us up in that, but I'm just saying, that was obviously, you kind of took what I meant for that.
I get the idea.
Yeah. We're relying. That's the thing. We're relying on each other, intergenerationally to some degree, or we should be.
Yes.
To help each other. And that's what keeps family values, or ultimately when you're talking about society, that's what keeps them, that cohesion, is the fact that we do ultimately have to rely on each other. And like I say, that's a much better methodology than pointing the proverbial gun at each other. That doesn't work out too well. But anyways, like I say, Josh, thanks. And if you ever want to have a chat again at any point in time for any topic, like I say, there's not much I won't discuss. Pretty much anything I'll talk about. And I really appreciate you coming on my my channel today.
All right, I appreciate you having me. I appreciate your fans actually being very very respectful as well.
Yeah, no, they're pretty good. And like I will even say before, I'll let you go. I'll do some explaining after. Well, I'll let the people know that I'm sorry that I didn't get too much in the chat, but they're pretty much realize that this at this point in time is I do kind of get hyper focused. I'm one of those people that I don't divide my attention quite as well. That's one thing I will say with you younger generation. You do seem to be much better with the multitasking to a small degree, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of one of those people. I get hyper focused. I want to make sure I was paying most attention to you in this chat, and yeah, they understand, they realize. But I'll talk with them after you get off, and like I say, anytime you want to have a conversation about anything going forward.
I think you might have cut out there. Oh, no, you didn't. Okay. I was like, I wasn't sure. You just stopped talking. I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah, it's starting to freeze up.
Okay.
All right, Josh. Like I say, you have yourself a great day, and we'll talk to you again. And like I say, now we've been in contact.
Absolutely. I would love to come on again.
All right, awesome. Have a good one, buddy.
All right, you as well. Thank you.
Yeah, take it easy. All right, everyone. Well, like I say, thanks for everyone that showed up to the stream. I really appreciate it. And as you probably heard me say to Josh, sorry for not getting to everyone's chat. I might spend the next little bit here now, seeing if I can figure out what I've missed. Okay, let's see here. Debunk climate change to win. Well, that's the thing. Climate change does actually exist. It's just that it's not the way they present it. That's actually, I'm going to have to do a big, long video someday, or a big, long conversation. You know what? I got to have a big conversation about the whole climate change thing to help clarify my thoughts and position on the whole climate change issue, because it's not being presented or discussed properly by most people out there. It seems like most people want to go with one or the other. It's happening or it isn't. There doesn't seem to be any nuance or no articulation of the whole point of climate change or what it even means. So I'm definitely going to cover that in maybe a future. Actually, maybe if I can get someone that's even wiser or more astute, because it's not something that I'm most proficient at, but I definitely got lots to say about it. But maybe I'll bring someone onto the stream at that point in time that has a better grasp and understanding regarding climate change, and we'll talk about it and really, really get down deep into the nitty-gritty of the climate change narrative that we're constantly being told. Okay. Mr. Mo Controls. Who's that? Okay, not sure who that is. Hey, Gary, I see Gary in the chat. What action? Steal money from people is theft the only plan? Is the only plan? Oh, he must be talking to someone else in the chat. No equality. Faith Thompson. Local is more accountable. Yes, decentralized. I agree. Faith Thompson, 100%. All the millions of solar panels and windmills in Ontario only account for 2% of electricity produced, so we have to build 98% more. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, right? Hypocrisy and deception is rampant. That's true. Trudeau said Quebec owns Canada and Alberta is paying for it. Huh? That's fairly accurate, actually, if you think about it properly, right? Government priorities should be affordable food and shelter. Anything more is missing with free will. Yeah, that's priorities should be affordable. Government priorities should be affordable food, shelter. Well, but that's not necessarily a government priority. That's just a person priority, people priorities. Of course, your food and shelter. That, like I say, that only happens in the free market, in a free market environment. My little town has its own forestry. We have so many metric tons that can't be removed because we don't have much industry. The forestry helps pays our property taxes. Yeah. Yes, all those industries, like every industry. I mean, think about it, forestry industry, oil and gas. You live in a house. If you live in a house or an apartment or a condo, without the forestry industry and the oil and gas industry, actually, I can't even go all the way back to log cabins, right? Or sod. You have to use nature. It's the thing. All of nature, the animal kingdom, human beings, we have to extract and use aspects of nature as a means to sustain ourselves. Everything that is a livable or a living species on this planet takes advantage of the natural resources wherever they live. it's weird that humans are constantly telling each other, you shouldn't do what you need to sustain yourself or to live free in any way. It's like, no, we should, and we can. And humans have shown that we're very capable of not just extracting resources to use for our own benefit, but to make that so beneficial that it brings huge swaths of the entire global population out of abstract poverty, right? Where they can become more productive, have a more meaningful, self-fulfilling life, and can help so many other people. And that's the other thing. If you're self-sustaining or fulfillment in your own life, then you can in return use some of those extracted resources or benefits or wealth to create an even better environment going forward for nature. So you can return the favor to nature. That's the thing. You don't need big government proponents or force or violence as a means to end. You just have to have a reciprocal effect and respect sovereignty and respect the earth, respect the land, respect the world that we live in. Now, this big, gigantic globe floats through space at 1,000 miles an hour. It's a pretty unique sphere, at least from what we've observed in our known universe so far, right? With some amazing tools and telescopes and devices and ships that have gone far off in space. We're pretty unique in the world that we know, or the universe that we know so far. And to pretend or suggest that humans somehow can't figure this out, or that the earth is somehow going to succumb because humans are consuming things or taking care of themselves, like, then you don't understand how resilient not just the earth, but the entire universe and what it represents can be. It's like people that say that, oh, humans are going to destroy. No, humans, we're not going to destroy the earth, okay? The earth, if it gets sick and tired of what we're doing, it'll shrug. It will be the ones that'll suffer at the end of the day, right? So no, humans will give them the natural incentive. Most people don't have a death wish or are on a suicide mission. Most people will do the right thing without the gun, the proverbial gun, pressed up their temple. It's like, come on, folks. I say freedom, free markets. That's the answer. Always has been and always will be. Hippies and tree huggers are so two-faced, aren't they? Right? Not one of them are walking around in like just homemade or homemade moccasins or a loincloth, right? Living off the land. Not one of them. They're all actually, a lot of these tree huggers and hippies probably have a much larger economic or carbon footprint than even the typical person like myself. Matter of fact, I'm very good because well, you could call it cheap, but only out of necessity because I've been poor most of my life. But I'm really good at making things last. I still have the first car I ever bought, right? My car that I drive today is 15 years old. I'm very, my house, I haven't bought multiple houses. I have one house. I'm happy with it. It's an old house. It's 100-some year, like 102, I think, year old home, or 103 now. A lot of us people that are portrayed or presented as being, oh, libertarians, oh, they hate the environment because they care about economic freedom. And no, like I said, but yeah, these tree huggers, biggest fucking hypocrites on the planet. Not all, but yeah, definitely a lot of them. You're completely right about that, Roldack. Hey, that's that movie that guy's from. That picture you're showing for your profile picture there. I remember that movie. Can't remember it right off the top of my head, but I recognize the face. Fossil fuels kill our Earth. Well, they don't kill. Actually, it's funny you say that, because what are fossil fuels? I mean, if you went to school, right? You obviously must have went to school. Where do fossil fuels come from? Right? You ever think about that? It's the old depleted remains, what's left over after, whether you're talking about dinosaurs or animals or plants over millions of years, it's the resources that you can extract from the remains, or what remains left of millions or billions, or maybe not billions, of species and the remains over the course of millions of years. So all we're actually, like, a person that wanted to play this into the political realm, like, I don't like playing politics or using the snake oil salesman, but in reality, all that stuff that's in the earth is in the earth. We didn't put it there. It came there by natural happenstance, and based on the history and the evolution of how the entire earth unfolded, like I say, through plants or animals. So actually, It's we're renewing or recycling or reusing old resources that already flourished at one point in time. Like I say, the animals, the plants, they all died. And now we're extracting and reusing or recycling the resources that are already here on this planet. It's not like we just created or invented them. No, like humans didn't just invent fossil fuels, right? Now they've done the chemical composition to make those fossil fuels be beneficial and used in like combustion engines or steam engines or, all those amazing industrial innovations or creations that we've done or people have done over the course of modern, since the industrial age. But really all we're doing is reusing the resources that are already there. They're right here, right? They're right there. They're here. But do people, when they go out to pick the fruit off the tree or in their garden, do you say that, oh, you're destroying the environment? Because in reality, when you're plucking those apples off the tree or your bananas or drinking your coffee and all, yeah, you're destroying like that tree. You're taking from that tree, right? That's produced that fruit or that commodity in some way, and you're using it. So I guess we could say, well, I guess if you're eating in any way, you're killing the earth? No, you're reusing that. That's hey, when you see a lion, if you go watch a lion or what else other than lions? The hyenas out there on the Serengeti Plains, and you see them, chomping down on a gazelle, or the giraffes that's eating the leaves off the trees, or are they destroying the earth? No, not at all. Actually, that is the cycle of life, right? That is the cycle. We all have to live, but that's the thing with some of these people that are these environmentalists. Like, you want to kill off all of humans, right? Because basically, if we did exactly what you'd either you want all humans to be killed off and no longer consuming or extracting resources on the planet, or you want us all be back to what, hunter-gatherer days? Is that what you want? Because I would have to actually ask you, D Gamer YT, is think about these things critically and ask yourself, how do you get to the mindset where you're saying fossil fuels kill our earth? Who put you in that mindset? Take some of the things, the responses and the rebuttal that you've even put forward. Just use some of the responses I've said to the people that put that information in your head and see what their response is. And like I say, I'll do a whole video in terms of environmentalism. So I'll give you lots of information or lots of pushback to these environmentalists that you can use against them and see what kind of answers they got. Chances are, as soon as you push back against them, it'll be like, they'll get that mental cognitive dissonance, or they'll get pissed off at you for daring to challenge them, right? And then you'll know that, okay, these aren't people that, hey, they're claiming to be moral and only tell me what's right or what's good. But you'll find it in fairly short order that that's not necessarily the case. They're either ignorant, conformist to an ideology, unwilling to think critically about the issue, or have some kind of vested interest in destroying those who do use oil and gas, which is every one of us, our ability to do that, to sustain ourselves, to heat our homes, to build our homes, to put food in our belly, to build all those roads. It's like, oh, come on, man. Come on, Sis and Buck, what's going on? Nothing moves unless the crown okays it. Yeah. Another gamer, IKR. I'm not even sure what that one is. Housing market inflation is fake wealth that is only there when other things are keeping it afloat. Yeah, that's true. It's true, Calvin. Okay, I'm probably going to tie it up, folks, because we're going on 3 hours, but I just wanted to scroll through. Inflation has to happen because the money to cover interest is never created. Therefore, things must always inflate so you can sell more. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, Gary. By the way, nice to see you back, Gary. The super corporations are killing the earth. What? Oh, my goodness. Super corporations are killing the earth. I don't know what that even means, but China's killing the planet. We used to make stuff to last a lifetime. Never. Well, that alone, that's a good way to push back. That's another way to think about things. Thanks for bringing that to light, Gary. I wouldn't necessarily have even thought to say that myself, but once again, that's the beautiful thing about having multiple perspectives and opinions, right? That aren't part and parcel of the ruling establishment. That's the thing, folks. You need to hear alternative opinions and responses to this kind of stuff from people like myself or Gary, just at the very least to make you think that, oh, well, let me dissolve that. Let me digest that for a minute and think about that, because that's really what needs to take place before we try to make any rash decisions going forward. My dad was right about those damn hippies. He said they're all reds. For my dad, that was the worst thing to be. Well, Mac, like I say, some of them have good intentions, no doubt. But as you all know, and we've heard many times before, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And yeah, a lot of those hippies, good intentions, but have definitely caused a lot of harm over the course of the, at least the 20th, 21st century so far. Vlad the Impaler, CO2 is good for my, CO2 is good for my growth. Exactly, like CO2, like being talked about as if it's a pollutant. It's literally, if you ever had a greenhouse or tried to grow anything or trees, like how can you? It's important and vital for the greening, right? It's like, what are you scared of green? That's the thing with these environmentalists, especially in Canada. These Canadian environmentalists is like, but you call yourself Greens. Even Elizabeth Bay, they're the Green Party. Well, hey, this climate change that's currently happening is making Canada more green, right? Even more and more of Canada is become more green as a result of so-called climate change. Well, it is climate change, but of what you call man-made climate change. So we're actually greening more of the earth, making more of the earth in Canada at least, more viable, more inhabitable, where we don't all have to be stuck in one small segment or one small portion along the southern border, right? So we're actually creating an area or an atmosphere in Canada or environment, I should say, where you're going to have more agricultural prospects or potential going forward. Isn't that a good thing? I think so. I'm not taking on climate guilt. I need the carbon tax money for prepping and stocking up what's coming. Right on, Faith. Okay. Like I say, I'm probably going to get off here soon here, folks. Hide your firearms with Justin. Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah. Now that he's got, at least it's not a majority mandate, right? But who's to say he might not try, especially when he gets closer to that second term or something. You just never know what's going to happen, folks. But yeah, you definitely want to be careful of that potential. Gen Z supposedly more conservative. I've heard that as well. I think most generations eventually end up, well, that's that difference between young or old, right? Are you on the side of the producer or the recipient? Right? That has a big effect on economic drivers and which side of the equation you fall on, for sure. Ideas are great, but useless unless followed through. Well said, Gary. I'm not going out of this world naked now. I see that. That's funny. Yeah, you don't have to. That's for sure. Your last suit has no pockets. You're right on, Gary. Anyways, rebel in the FDG. Liberals are stuffing the urban areas with import voters. That's won the election. It's going to, yeah, that is very much possible. Like I say, I'm going to do the breakdown on this, actually, the whole demographics and how that all played out. I've got a bunch of articles that I'm going to be referencing and the facts and the statistics and the number, and I'll try to deal with that much more in depth here eventually. Thanks, Zorro Kanapi. Great channel upload. And I usually do at least five a week. Like I say, subscribe to the channel, and anyone else that hasn't done so far that's still in the chat, yeah, subscribe to the channel, please. Help me and share my video, because I really do need your help, folks. We all got to help each other if we want to be a force against the authoritarian collectivists. Thank you very much. Sledfast 597, Lubkey, appreciate it. Love to have a personal chat with you one day. Email me. Okay, Gary. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do a personal one someday. I'll try to keep this up to date here. Well, I'll keep this. Actually, you know what? I'll keep this right here now, and I'll tie up the stream there, folks. Like I say, I appreciate everyone that did show up. I'm not sure when I'm doing my next stream. I might have another one next Sunday. There's a couple people that have reached out to me to do another stream, and I've tested my internet, and it seems to be working at least pretty decently. So yeah, I'm going to be getting back into doing more streams. And like I say, thanks to everyone of those you did show up and put up for 3 hours now of me going on. And but you know, it was great talk with Josh. A great, smart, wise young man. I'm always proud to see young men like this that are stepping up the plate and thinking about these issues critically and fighting for freedom going forward. We really need the young people to do that, right? We need all generations to help fight for freedom. It's how important it is. It's important for every single one of us, whether it's you're talking about short, medium, or in the long-term prospect. And the viability of our cultures or our societies is we have to fight for freedom, each and every one of us, in the best way we can. Thanks to all of you who did so or continue to do so and who watch this stream. And we'll see you next time. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.